Hey story enthusiasts! This is Harry Flicks bringing you another gem. In this video, we present to you what if Harry was raised by vampires. Immortal Dark Harry. If you enjoy these stories as much as we enjoy sharing them, please like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Let's dive in. Chapter 1, Blood Inheritance. The forest whispered secrets in the darkness. Harry moved through the underbrush without a sound, his bare feet finding natural pathways between fallen twigs and dry leaves. The night air felt electric against his skin as he tracked his prey, a large buck that had wandered away from its herd. "Remember," Marcus's voice came as barely a breath in his ear, "patience wins more battles than strength." Harry nodded slightly, not taking his eyes off the animal 30 yards ahead. At 10 years old, he was smaller than most boys his age, but his muscles were wiry and strong. Years of training had taught him to move like shadow, to breathe without sound, to be invisible until the moment to strike. The buck raised its head suddenly, nostrils flaring. Harry froze mid-step, becoming part of the forest. His heartbeat slowed deliberately, another trick Marcus had taught him. "Control your body, control your hunt." "Now," Marcus whispered. Harry launched forward, crossing the distance in a blur. The buck tried to bolt, but Harry was faster, reaching the animal and leaping onto its back in one fluid motion. His hand found the jugular with practiced precision. With a quick movement, he pierced the skin with the ceremonial dagger he carried, not his fangs, not yet, and collected the lifeblood in a small obsidian veil hung around his neck. "Clean kill," Marcus said, materializing beside him. "Your speed has improved." Harry grinned, sliding off the buck's back. "I've been practicing the blood rush technique. Ilara showed me how to channel it through my legs." Marcus raised an eyebrow, his pale face catching moonlight. "Has she now? And did Lyra approve of these lessons?" "What Lyra doesn't know won't hurt her," Harry said with a mischievous smile, pocketing the blood vial. "Besides, I'll need every advantage when I turn 11. You said yourself the rituals get harder." Marcus placed a hand on Harry's shoulder. At 6'4" with shoulders like granite, the vampire warrior made even the forest seem small. His long black hair was tied back in a warrior's knot, revealing a face that had remained 35 years old for over 7 centuries. "The blood coming of age is not about advantages, young one. It's about proving your worth to the coven." His crimson eyes softened slightly. "Though I've never doubted yours." Harry nodded, feeling the familiar warmth of pride. From Marcus, a compliment was rare currency. "Let's honor this kill properly," Harry said, kneeling beside the buck. He placed his hand on the animal's flank, murmuring ancient words Lyra had taught him. "Blood given, life taken, balance maintained. May your spirit find peace in the eternal forest." Marcus watched with approval. "Your mother would be proud of your respect for the hunt." "Lily Potter wasn't a vampire," Harry said automatically. "I meant Lyra," Marcus clarified, a rare smile crossing his face. "Though I'm certain your birth mother would be proud as well." They started back toward the haven, moving at vampire speed through the trees. Harry could maintain this pace for nearly an hour now, not as long as a true vampire, but remarkable for a human child. They slowed as they approached the boundaries of their territory, marked by ancient stones carved with runes that glowed faintly blue in the darkness. "Home sweet home," Harry muttered as the imposing structure of Nightshade Manor emerged through the trees. The haven looked like an ancient Gothic fortress to outsiders, all crumbling stone and menacing gargoyles, an illusion carefully maintained by Lyra's magic. To those with vampire blood, or in Harry's case, those bound to vampire magic, the true manor revealed itself, a magnificent blend of ancient architecture and modern comforts, with soaring towers and expansive gardens surrounding the central building. They entered through the east wing, where the training areas were located. Several younger vampires, those merely a century or two old, were practicing combat forms in the moonlit courtyard. They nodded respectfully to Marcus and Harry as they passed. "You should clean up before seeing Lyra," Marcus advised. "You smell like the forest." "And you don't." Harry teased. Marcus cuffed him lightly on the back of the head. I am allowed to smell like battle. You're expected at the council meeting in an hour. Harry groaned. Another politics lesson? On the night before my birthday? Your 11th year approaches. It's significant for both vampires and wizards, Marcus said seriously. Go. Bathe. Dress formally. Harry knew better than to argue further. He raced up the spiral staircase to his chambers in the West Tower, his private sanctuary in the sprawling manor. His room reflected both sides of his unusual upbringing. Ancient vampire texts on blood magic and combat strategy lined one bookshelf, while another held wizarding books Lyra had procured over the years. A practice dummy stood in one corner, covered in marks from Harry's daggers and magical practice. His four-poster bed was draped with crimson hangings, a color that Alara joked made bloodstains less noticeable. Harry stripped off his hunting clothes and stepped into the enchanted shower that could switch between ice-cold, for vampire preference, and steaming hot, for his human comfort. He chose hot tonight, letting the water wash away the dirt and sweat of the hunt. As steam filled the bathroom, his mind drifted to the story he'd heard countless times, how he came to live among vampires. Lyra Nightshade had lived for over 2 millennia. She had witnessed empires rise and fall, walked with kings and queens, and survived countless attempts to destroy her kind. Nothing surprised her anymore. Until that night in Godric's Hollow. She had been tracking a disturbance in the magical world, a ripple of dark energy so profound it had awakened her from her daytime rest. Such power deserved investigation. The cottage was still smoldering when she arrived. Death hung in the air, fresh, magical death. 2 wizard bodies lay cooling inside, a man downstairs, a woman upstairs. But it was the third magical signature that froze Lyra in her tracks. A baby, somehow alive, with a jagged wound on his forehead that reeked of the darkest magic she'd encountered in centuries. And something else, a blood protection so powerful it hummed in the air around the child. Lyra approached the crib cautiously. The baby, not more than a year old, stared up at her with vivid green eyes, unafraid. She could sense his magical core, unusually developed and now twisted with whatever dark magic had rebounded in this room. Hello, little one, she whispered. What remarkable magic you've survived. She heard voices outside, wizards arriving to investigate. Decisions needed to be made quickly. This child was clearly important, possibly the source of the magical disturbance she'd felt. In another minute, the wizarding authorities would find him, and she would lose the chance to understand what had happened here. Lyra made her choice. With supernatural speed, she gathered the child and vanished into the night, seconds before Sirius Black burst through the nursery door to find an empty crib. Harry stepped out of the shower, the memory, not his own, but told so many times it felt like it, fading as he dressed in formal robes. Black with crimson trim, they marked him as a protégé of the Nightshade Coven. He studied himself in the mirror. Black hair that refused to behave, green eyes that sometimes flashed with an inner light when he used blood magic, and the lightning scar that connected him to a past he barely remembered. He traced the scar with his finger, feeling the slight pulse of magic that always emanated from it. Looking princely, came a voice from his window. Harry turned to see Alara perched on his windowsill, her platinum blonde hair gleaming in the moonlight. At barely 200 years old, she was considered practically an infant in vampire terms, which perhaps explained why she'd taken so quickly to having a human child in the coven. Aren't you supposed to be on border patrol tonight? Harry asked, grinning. She waved dismissively. Switched with Kaelin. Couldn't miss the excitement before your big day. She hopped down and circled him, inspecting his formal wear. Council meeting? Unfortunately. Poor baby, she teased, ruffling his hair and destroying what little order he'd managed to impose on it. Political education is important, you know. Especially with your unique position. Harry sighed. Half wizard, half vampire but not really, prophesied chosen one of 2 worlds that hate each other. Yeah, I'd call that unique. Elara punched his arm lightly. Don't be dramatic. Vampires don't hate wizards. We just find them. She searched for the word, inefficient. Tell that to Marcus. He still complains about the Vampire Hunting Act of 1770. Marcus holds grudges. It's his best quality. Elara flopped onto Harry's bed. Besides, things are changing. You're changing them just by existing. She propped herself up on her elbows. Heard anything about tomorrow yet? Harry shook his head. Just that there's some big ritual planned. Blood coming of age, probably. And nothing about any letters? Elara asked too casually. Harry narrowed his eyes. What do you know? She pantomimed, locking her lips. Council business. You'll find out soon enough. She glanced at the ornate clock on his wall. Which you'll be late for if you don't hurry. Harry cursed and grabbed his ceremonial dagger, sliding it into his belt. This conversation isn't over, he warned. It never is with you, she laughed, disappearing out the window as quickly as she'd come. The council chambers occupied the heart of the manor, a circular room with a domed ceiling painted to show the night sky. 13 throne-like chairs formed a circle, with a smaller chair positioned in the center. Harry had spent countless hours in that central seat, learning vampire history, politics, and magic from the elders. He entered quietly, but 13 pairs of ancient eyes still turned to him immediately. Lyra Nightshade sat directly opposite the door. Unlike Marcus's warrior build, Lyra was willowy and elegant, with high cheekbones and eyes so dark they appeared black rather than red. Her raven hair fell in waves to her waist, and she wore flowing robes of deepest midnight blue. She didn't look older than 30, but her eyes held millennia of knowledge. Harry, she acknowledged with a slight smile. Join us. He took his place in the center, keeping his posture straight and proud as Marcus had taught him. Show weakness to a vampire council, even his family, and they'd instinctively look for ways to exploit it. It wasn't cruelty, just vampire nature. We were discussing your 11th year, Lyra continued. An important milestone approaches. My blood coming of age, Harry nodded. Yes, said Cyrus, one of the elder council members. But also something from your wizard heritage. Corvus, please explain. Corvus, the Coven's expert on magical beings, leaned forward. As you know, magical children receive their formal education invitations when they turn 11. Tomorrow, we anticipate you'll receive a letter from Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Harry blinked in surprise. The wizard school. But I thought that your education would continue here. Lyra finished. That has always been our intention. However, circumstances have evolved. She exchanged glances with the other council members. Your magical signature has been registered with their school since birth. If you don't attend, questions will be asked. Investigations may follow. But more importantly, added Marcus, who stood behind Lyra's chair, there are advantages to you receiving wizard training. Harry looked between them, confused. You want me to go? To live among wizards? We want you to infiltrate, Corvus clarified. Learn their ways, their weaknesses, their magic. Information we could never access otherwise. You would not be abandoning your vampire training, Lyra assured him. You would return during breaks, and we have methods to communicate while you're there. Harry's mind raced. Leave the haven. Live among humans who knew nothing of vampire ways. The idea was both terrifying and thrilling. There's more, Marcus said gravely. The wizard who killed your parents, the one who gave you that scar, many believe he isn't truly dead. Harry's hand went automatically to his forehead. Voldemort. Several council members hissed at the name, not in fear but distaste. Yes, Lyra said. We have sources that suggest he exists in some form, weakened but not destroyed. If he returns to power, he will target you again. Being at Hogwarts puts you under the protection of Albus Dumbledore. The wizard you say wanted to place me with human relatives who hated magic, Harry said skeptically. The very same, Lyra acknowledged. His methods are questionable, but his power is not. The Dark Lord feared him. Harry considered this. If I go, what happens to my blood coming of age? My vampire training? Modified, not abandoned, Marcus answered. We'll perform the initial ritual before you leave. The rest can be completed during your return visits. A thought occurred to Harry. Will they even accept me? I'm not entirely human anymore. The vampires exchanged glances again, this time with something like amusement. Your blood is still wizard blood, Harry, Lyra explained. The changes we've made, the enhanced strength, speed, senses, those come from blood magic, not transformation. You're not a vampire, you're a wizard with vampire gifts. And limitations, Harry reminded her. I can't go without blood for more than a week. Arrangements will be made, Corvus assured him. Animal blood can sustain you when necessary. Harry fell silent, processing everything. Part of him was excited at the prospect of exploring the wizarding world, learning magic his vampire family couldn't teach him. Another part feared leaving the only home and family he'd ever known. The decision must be yours, Lyra said finally. But know this, whether you go as student or spy, you go as a nightshade. You are ours, Harry, as much as you are a Potter. The word settled something in Harry's chest. I'll go, he said firmly. I'll learn everything I can about them. For the Coven. Lyra's smile was both proud and predatory. Excellent. Tomorrow we celebrate your birthday and prepare you for both worlds. Harry couldn't sleep. His mind buzzed with questions about Hogwarts, about wizards, about what awaited him. Shortly after midnight, he gave up on rest and made his way to the manor's vast library. He wasn't surprised to find Lyra there, reading by candlelight though she could see perfectly in darkness. She had always preferred the flame's warm glow to harsh modern lighting. Birthday insomnia? She asked without looking up. Too much to think about, Harry admitted, sliding into the chair opposite her. Tell me about my parents again. My birth parents. Lyra closed her book. This was a conversation they'd had many times over the years, but Harry never tired of it. Information was power, and these were pieces of himself he needed to understand. James and Lily Potter, she began. Both talented wizards. James came from an old wizarding family, purebloods, they call themselves. Lily was Muggle-born, a witch-born to non-magical parents. Like me being wizard-born to a vampire family, Harry suggested. Lyra smiled slightly. Perhaps. They fought against the Dark Lord Voldemort during the Wizarding War. They went into hiding after a prophecy suggested their child, you, would be the one to defeat him. Why didn't their protection spells work? Harry asked, though he knew the answer. Betrayal, Lyra said simply. Someone they trusted revealed their location. Voldemort came himself, an honor, in his twisted mind. He killed James first, then offered Lily a chance to live if she would step aside. But she didn't, Harry whispered. No. She chose to die protecting you. That sacrifice created the blood protection I sensed that night, ancient magic that even vampires respect. When Voldemort tried to kill you, the spell rebounded, destroying his body and leaving you with that scar. Harry touched his forehead again. And the piece of his soul. This had been the most disturbing discovery, years ago when Lyra had brought in specialists to examine his scar. A fragment of Voldemort's soul had attached itself to Harry in that moment between life and death. Yes, Lyra confirmed. Though our blood rituals have contained it, prevented it from influencing you. Could wizard magic remove it completely? Perhaps, Lyra said carefully. But not without risk to you. The fragment has been there since you were an infant. It's intertwined with your own magic now. They sat in silence for a moment before Harry asked, "Will the wizards hate what I've become?" Lyra considered this. "Many will. Wizards fear vampires because they cannot control us. Our magic is older than theirs, tied to blood and life force rather than words and wands." She leaned forward. "But some may see the advantages. You'll walk in both worlds, Harry. That makes you unique, and valuable. Or dangerous," he added. "The most valuable things usually are," she replied with a slight smile. A clock somewhere in the manor struck 1. Harry's birthday had officially begun. "Happy birthday, my son," Lyra said softly. Harry looked up, surprised by the endearment she rarely used. Vampire families weren't sentimental by nature. "Thank you, Mother," he replied, the word feeling right in this moment. She reached into her robes and produced a small package wrapped in black silk. "Your birthday gift. I was going to wait, but perhaps now is better." Harry carefully unwrapped it to find a silver pendant in the shape of a nightshade flower, the coven's symbol. In the center of the flower sat a small vial. "My blood," Lyra explained. "Should you ever face true danger beyond your skills, break the vial and speak my name. I will know, wherever I am, and come to you." The gift left Harry speechless. Vampire blood freely given was the rarest of gifts, representing absolute trust. He slipped the pendant around his neck, feeling its weight against his chest. "I'll treasure it always," he promised. Lyra nodded, then stood. "Get some rest. Tomorrow brings your letter, and preparations must be made." Harry awoke to Alara bouncing on the end of his bed. "It's here. It's here," she sang, waving a parchment envelope. Harry sat up groggily. "What time is it?" "Almost noon. The council let you sleep in since you were up half the night." She thrust the envelope at him. "Look." Harry took it, examining the heavy parchment with green ink. "Mr. H. Potter, the West Tower, Nightshade Manor, Blackwood Forest. How do they know where I sleep?" Harry asked, breaking the wax seal with the Hogwarts crest. "Magic, obviously," Alara rolled her eyes. "Read it." Harry pulled out the letter and read aloud, "Dear Mr. Potter, we are pleased to inform you that you have been accepted at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Please find enclosed a list of all necessary books and equipment. Term begins on September 1st. We await your owl by no later than July 31st. Yours sincerely, Minerva McGonagall, Deputy Headmistress." He looked up at Alara. "They await my owl. What does that mean?" "Wizard post," she explained. "They use birds instead of blood messengers. Barbaric, if you ask me." She bounced again. "Aren't you excited? You're going to learn to wave a stick and say funny words." "Very different from drinking blood and saying funny words," Harry deadpanned. Alara laughed. "Exactly. Now hurry up. Your blood coming of age ritual starts at sunset, and we need to get your school supplies before that." "We're going shopping?" Harry asked, surprised. The coven rarely ventured into human areas during daylight. "Marcus, you, and me," she confirmed. "Some wizard shopping street in London." "Diagonally?" "No, Diagon Alley. Lyra has it all arranged. I get to wear my fancy human disguise." She twirled, showing off her daylight appearance, glamour magic that made her eyes blue instead of red and her skin a normal human tone rather than vampire pale. Harry dressed quickly in his most inconspicuous clothes, jeans and a black t-shirt that wouldn't stand out among humans. He grabbed the supply list from his letter and scanned it: robes, books, cauldron, wand. "A wand," he murmured. After years of wandless blood magic, the idea of channeling power through a wooden stick seemed strange. They met Marcus in the entrance hall. The warrior looked distinctly uncomfortable in modern human clothing, black jeans and a leather jacket that strained across his massive shoulders. His long hair was tied back, and like Alara, he wore a glamour that turned his eyes dark brown instead of crimson. "This is undignified," he growled as Harry approached. "But necessary," came Lyra's voice as she descended the main staircase. "You'll attract enough attention with Harry Potter in tow without looking like vampire warriors." Harry hadn't considered that. "Will people recognize me?" "You're somewhat famous in their world," Lyra said dryly. "The boy who survived the killing curse. The child who vanished mysteriously afterward." "Great," Harry muttered. "Keep your scar covered," Lyra instructed. "And remember your training. Observe more than you speak. Learn their customs before revealing your own." Harry nodded, mentally shifting into what Marcus called reconnaissance mode. "We'll take the shadow path to London," Lyra continued, then approached the wizard shopping district on foot. "Marcus has the wizard currency you'll need." Harry glanced at the warrior, who patted a pocket in his jacket. "Exchanged through our goblin contacts," Marcus explained. "Creatures with more business sense than most wizards." Minutes later, they stood in a shadowy London alleyway, having traveled through the vampire shadow network, a method of transportation that used the connected darkness between places. Harry always emerged slightly nauseated, his human physiology not quite adapted to shadow travel. "This way," Marcus said, leading them toward a shabby-looking pub that Harry nearly missed seeing. "The Leaky Cauldron. Gateway to Diagon Alley. You've been here before?" Harry asked, surprised. "I'm over 700 years old," Marcus replied. "I've been most places." The pub was dark and crowded, filled with oddly dressed people who Harry assumed were wizards. Conversations halted briefly as they entered, three unnaturally graceful figures, two adults flanking a child, but resumed when they made no dramatic announcements or moves. Marcus led them through the pub to a brick wall behind the building. He tapped specific bricks in sequence, and Harry watched in fascination as the wall rearranged itself into an archway. "Welcome to Diagon Alley," Elara whispered, excitement making her bounce on her toes. The street beyond was like nothing Harry had seen in his sheltered life. Colorful shops lined the cobblestone road, selling everything from cauldrons to owls. Witches and wizards in robes moved between stores, carrying packages and chatting. The air hummed with magic, different from vampire magic, more chaotic and diverse. "First, your robes," Marcus decided, consulting the list. "Madame Malkin's." The robe shop was mercifully quiet when they entered. A squat witch Harry assumed was Madame Malkin approached them with a smile that faltered slightly when she took in Marcus's intimidating presence. "Hogwarts, dear?" she asked Harry, recovering her professional demeanor. "Yes," Harry confirmed. "Right this way. Got another young man being fitted now." Harry followed her to a fitting area where a pale, blonde boy stood on a stool while another witch pinned up his long black robes. Marcus and Elara hung back, observing silently. "Hello," the boy said, looking Harry over. "Hogwarts too?" "Yes," Harry replied, stepping onto the stool beside him. "My father's next door buying my books and mother's up the street looking at wands," said the boy in a bored, drawling voice. "Then I'm going to drag them off to look at racing brooms. I don't see why first years can't have their own. I think I'll bully father into getting me one and I'll smuggle it in somehow." Harry raised an eyebrow, unimpressed with the boy's attitude. "That sounds like a poorly conceived plan." The boy looked startled, then frowned. "Do you even know who you're talking to?" "Should I?" Harry asked, channeling Lyra's cool detachment. "Draco Malfoy," the boy said importantly. "And you are?" Harry hesitated, remembering Lyra's warning about his fame. "Harry," he said simply. "Just Harry?" Draco pressed. Harry shrugged. "For now." Draco looked confused but continued, "What house do you think you'll be in?" "I know I'll be in Slytherin, all our family have been. Imagine being in Hufflepuff, I think I'd leave, wouldn't you?" "I haven't given it much thought," Harry answered truthfully. House politics seemed trivial compared to vampire coven hierarchies. Where are your parents? Draco asked, glancing toward Marcus and Elara. Dead, Harry said flatly. Oh, sorry, Draco said, not sounding sorry at all. But they were our kind, weren't they? Harry felt a flicker of irritation. They were magical, if that's what you're asking. I really don't think they should let the other sort in, Draco continued. They're just not the same, they've never been brought up to know our ways. You'd be surprised how many ways different magical communities share, Harry interrupted. Prejudice often stems from ignorance. Draco stared at him. You talk strangely. Not from around here, are you? I've had an alternative education, Harry said carefully. Before Draco could respond, Madame Malkin announced, That's you done, my dear. The blonde boy hopped down. Well, see you at Hogwarts, I suppose, he said, giving Harry another curious look before leaving. Once he was gone, Elara approached. Making friends already, she teased. More like identifying potential problems, Harry muttered. After finishing with robes, they collected the other standard items, cauldron, scales, telescope, and books. Harry was particularly interested in the bookshop, Flourish and Blots, where he selected several extra volumes on magical theory that might complement his vampire knowledge. Wand last, Marcus said as they exited the apothecary with potion ingredients. Ollivander's. The wand shop was narrow and shabby, with a single wand lying on a faded purple cushion in the window. As they entered, Harry felt a strange tingling, thousands of magical signatures contained in the boxes that lined the walls from floor to ceiling. An old man appeared from the shadows, making even Marcus tense slightly. Good afternoon, the man said softly, his pale eyes gleaming like moons. Ah yes. Harry Potter. I thought I'd be seeing you soon. Harry stiffened. His scar was covered by his hair, how had the wandmaker known? You have your mother's eyes, Ollivander continued. It seems only yesterday she was in here buying her first wand. 10¼ inches long, swishy, made of willow. Nice for charm work. He moved closer, and Harry resisted the urge to step back. This human might look frail, but power radiated from him. Your father, on the other hand, favored a mahogany wand. 11 inches. Pliable. Excellent for transfiguration. Ollivander's gaze shifted to Marcus and Elara, his expression unreadable. Interesting guardians you found, Mr. Potter. Very interesting indeed. Marcus stepped forward. We're here for a wand, not conversation. Ollivander smiled thinly. Of course. He turned back to Harry. Your wand arm. I'm right-handed, Harry replied. A tape measure began taking measurements on its own while Ollivander pulled boxes from the shelves. Every Ollivander wand has a core of a powerful magical substance, Mr. Potter. We use unicorn hairs, phoenix tail feathers, and the heartstrings of dragons. No two wands are the same, just as no two wizards are the same. And of course, you will never get such good results with another wizard's wand. He handed Harry a wand. Try this. Beechwood and dragon heartstring. 9 inches. Nice and flexible. Harry took it, feeling nothing special. He gave it a wave, but Ollivander snatched it back almost immediately. No, no. Try this, maple and phoenix feather. This pattern continued through several wands, each rejected quickly by Ollivander. Instead of becoming frustrated, the old wandmaker seemed increasingly excited. Tricky customer, eh? Not to worry, we'll find the perfect match here somewhere. I wonder, now, unusual combination, holly and phoenix feather, 11 inches, nice and supple. When Harry touched this wand, immediate warmth spread through his fingers. But along with the warmth came a strange sensation, as if the wand was trying to connect to his magical core but finding it altered. He raised the wand and brought it down through the air, producing a stream of red and gold sparks. Ollivander clapped his hands. Oh, bravo! Yes, indeed, very good. But curious, very curious. What's curious? Harry asked. I remember every wand I've ever sold, Mr. Potter. Every single wand. And it so happens that the phoenix whose tail feather is in your wand gave another feather, just one other. It is very curious indeed that you should be destined for this wand when its brother, why, its brother gave you that scar. Harry felt a chill. The wand connected to Voldemort was now connected to him. Yes, 13.5 inches. You. Curious indeed how these things happen. The wand chooses the wizard. I think we must expect great things from you, Mr. Potter. After all, he who must not be named did great things, terrible, yes, but great. Marcus paid 7 gold galleons for the wand, and they left the shop quickly. He knew what we are, Elara whispered as they headed back toward the leaky cauldron. He suspected, Marcus corrected. But he won't speak of it. Wand makers have their own code of secrecy. Harry clutched his wand box, thinking about the connection to Voldemort's wand and what it might mean. Another piece tying him to the wizard who had tried to kill him. The blood coming of age ritual began at sunset in the sacred grove behind Nightshade Manor. All 13 council members stood in a circle around an obsidian altar, with Lyra at the head position. Harry knelt before the altar, dressed only in ritual black pants, his chest bare to receive the coven markings. 11 years ago, a child of wizard blood came into our protection, Lyra intoned, her voice carrying through the grove. Tonight, that child takes his first steps toward adulthood in our ways. She approached Harry, a ceremonial silver dagger in her hand. Blood freely given creates bonds stronger than death. She cut her palm and let 3 drops fall into a silver goblet on the altar. One by one, the council members did the same, until the cup held blood from all 13 elders. Marcus stepped forward next, adding his blood. I give the blood of the warrior, that you may have strength in battle. Elara came after, smiling as she added her contribution. I give the blood of youth, that you may adapt to changing worlds. Finally, Lyra added a second offering. I give the blood of the ancient, that you may have wisdom beyond your years. She lifted the goblet and turned to Harry. Do you, Harry James Potter, accept the blood of the Nightshade Coven, with all its gifts and responsibilities? I do, Harry said firmly. Do you swear to honor our ways, protect our secrets, and uphold our values in all worlds you walk? I swear it, Harry replied. Then drink, and become one with our blood. Harry took the goblet and drank the combined blood. It burned going down his throat, powerful magic surging through his system. He gasped, feeling the blood magic rewiring his body, enhancing his already accelerated abilities. Lyra took the empty goblet and placed it on the altar. She picked up a smaller dagger made of obsidian and approached Harry again. Now we mark you as ours. The ritual marking took hours. Intricate patterns were carved into Harry's skin with the obsidian blade, then filled with a mixture of vampire blood and magical herbs. The wounds healed instantly, leaving behind dark lines that seemed to move slightly beneath his skin, living tattoos that would grow with him, enhancing his connection to vampire magic. By midnight, it was complete. Harry stood, his chest and back now covered in swirling patterns centered around the Nightshade Coven symbol over his heart. Rise, Harry Potter Nightshade, Lyra proclaimed. Blood of our blood, Night Walker, Wizard Kin. The council members bowed their heads in acknowledgement of his new status. There is one final gift, Lyra said, gesturing to Marcus. The warrior approached with a wooden box. Inside lay 2 daggers of exquisite craftsmanship, one silver, one black iron. Silver for creatures of darkness, Marcus explained. Iron for those of light. Both balanced for throwing or close combat. Harry lifted them reverently, feeling their perfect weight in his hands. Thank you, all of you, he said, looking around at the faces of his vampire family. When you go among wizards, Lyra said, remember who you are. Remember who raised you, trained you, loved you. You walk in their world, but your heart beats with our magic. The remaining month before Hogwarts passed in intense preparation. Harry's training schedule doubled as Marcus crammed in as many combat lessons as possible. Lyra taught him wizard customs and what to expect at Hogwarts, while Alara focused on helping him practice appearing normal around humans. On the morning of September 1st, Harry stood in the entrance hall of Nightshade Manor, his trunk packed with an unusual combination of wizard supplies and vampire artifacts. He wore the Hogwarts uniform under an open robe, his daggers concealed in enchanted sheaths on his forearms, and the blood pendant from Lyra hidden under his shirt. "Remember your blood supplements," Lyra instructed, handing him a case of vials containing preserved animal blood. "1 vial every 3 days at minimum. More if you're using blood magic." "I know, Mother," Harry said, tucking the case into his magically expanded pocket. "And the blood mirror," she continued. "Activate it only in private. Wizard magic can detect vampire artifacts if they're actively being used." Harry patted his trunk where the mirror was carefully wrapped. "I'll be careful. And don't let Dumbledore manipulate you," Marcus added gruffly. "Wizards always think they know best. Says the vampire who thinks he knows everything," Alara teased, elbowing the much larger vampire. Marcus growled at her, but there was no real heat in it. "We should go," Lyra said, checking an ancient pocket watch. "The train leaves at 11 precisely." They shadow-traveled to a secluded spot near King's Cross Station in London, then walked the remaining distance. Harry had studied the ticket and platform information, knowing they needed to find platform 9 3/4. "It's a hidden entrance," Lyra explained as they approached the barrier between platforms 9 and 10. "Walk straight through, the magic will recognize you as a wizard." Harry nodded, trying not to look nervous. He turned to his vampire family. "I guess this is goodbye for now." Alara hugged him tightly. "Write to us. Or mirror call. Or both." Marcus clasped his shoulder. "Remember your training. Trust no one until they prove worthy." Lyra stepped forward last, placing her hands on Harry's cheeks. "You carry our blood with you, my son. You are never truly alone." She leaned down and kissed his forehead, right over his scar. "Now go. Show the wizards what a vampire-raised child can do." Harry took a deep breath, gripped the handle of his trolley, and walked confidently toward the barrier. Instead of crashing, he passed through onto a platform where a scarlet steam engine waited. A sign overhead read, "Hogwarts Express, 11 o'clock." The platform bustled with activity, families saying goodbye, students loading trunks, owls hooting in cages. Harry scanned the crowd automatically, assessing threats and exits as Marcus had taught him. Most people didn't give him a second glance, focused on their own farewells. Harry lifted his trunk easily, vampire-enhanced strength making the weight negligible, and boarded the train, finding an empty compartment near the back. He stowed his trunk and sat by the window, watching the platform activities with interest. Wizard families seemed so emotional. Hugging, crying, shouting last-minute reminders. The train whistle blew. Harry settled back in his seat as the Hogwarts Express began to move, carrying him toward his new life in the wizarding world. He touched the blood pendant under his shirt, drawing comfort from Lyra's protection. "Here we go," he murmured to himself. "Time to show them what a vampire-raised wizard can do." The compartment door slid open, and a tall, red-headed boy poked his head in. "Anyone sitting there?" he asked, pointing to the seat opposite Harry. "Everywhere else is full." Harry gestured for him to enter. "It's free." The boy sat down, giving Harry a curious look. "I'm Ron, by the way. Ron Weasley." "Harry," he replied, deciding to keep his surname to himself for now. "Do you know what house you'll be in?" Ron asked, echoing Draco's question from the robe shop. Harry shook his head. "Not really." "You?" "I'll probably be Gryffindor. All my family are." Ron looked slightly nervous. "Better than Slytherin though. That's where all the dark wizards come from." Harry raised an eyebrow. Dark doesn't always mean evil. Ron looked at him strangely. Spoken like someone who's never met a dark wizard. Harry smiled slightly. If only the boy knew who, or what, had raised him. The compartment door opened again, and a girl with bushy brown hair and rather large front teeth appeared. Has anyone seen a toad? A boy named Neville's lost one. No toads here, Ron replied. The girl's eyes landed on Harry, narrowing slightly. Who are you? Harry, he said simply. Just Harry, she pressed, reminding him of Draco. For now, he repeated his earlier answer. She didn't seem satisfied but moved on. I'm Hermione Granger. I've tried a few simple spells just for practice and it's all worked for me. Nobody in my family's magic at all, it was ever such a surprise when I got my letter, but I was ever so pleased, of course. I mean, it's the very best school of witchcraft there is, I've heard. I've learned all our course books by heart, of course. I just hope it will be enough. Harry blinked at the torrent of words. The girl spoke faster than even Alara on her most excitable days. You've learned all the course books by heart? He asked, genuinely impressed. He'd studied them, certainly, but memorization had seemed excessive when practical application was more important. Well, yes, she said, looking pleased at his reaction. Haven't you? I've focused more on practical applications, Harry replied diplomatically. Oh, have you tried any spells already? What worked for you? Her enthusiasm seemed boundless. Harry hesitated. His practical applications had mostly involved blood magic, not standard wizarding spells. Just basic things, he said vaguely. She seemed about to press further when the compartment door opened yet again. Draco Malfoy stood there with two larger boys flanking him. They're saying all down the train that Harry Potter's in this compartment, Draco said, looking directly at Harry. So it's you, is it? Harry sighed internally. So much for keeping a low profile. Yes, he admitted. Ron gasped. You're Harry Potter. Why didn't you say so? Draco's pale eyes gleamed with interest. This is Crabbe and Goyle, he said, nodding to his companions. And I'm Malfoy, Draco Malfoy. Ron gave a slight cough that might have been hiding a snigger. Draco turned to him with narrowed eyes. Think my name's funny, do you? No need to ask who you are. My father told me all the Weasleys have red hair, freckles, and more children than they can afford. He turned back to Harry. You'll soon find that some wizarding families are better than others, Potter. You don't want to go making friends with the wrong sort. I can help you there. He extended his hand. Harry looked at it, then at Draco's face. The boy was arrogant, certainly, but Harry could sense genuine opportunity in the offer. Vampire politics had taught him the value of strategic alliances. Instead of taking the hand immediately, Harry stood. At their full height, he and Draco were eye to eye. I appreciate the offer, Draco. I'm capable of determining the right sort for myself. That said, I don't see why we can't be civil. Harry extended his own hand now, reversing the power dynamic. After a moment's hesitation, Draco shook it. Fair enough, Potter. The offer stands when you realize what you're getting into with certain elements. His eyes flicked to Ron and Hermione. After Draco and his cronies left, Ron stared at Harry. That was weird. Malfoys and Weasleys have hated each other for generations. I don't see the value in making enemies before classes even start, Harry replied with a shrug. Besides, hate is a strong emotion to waste on someone you barely know. Ron looked confused, while Hermione studied Harry with new interest. You don't talk like other 11-year-olds, she observed. Harry smiled slightly. I had an unconventional upbringing. Before she could ask more questions, a voice echoed through the train, we will be reaching Hogwarts in 5 minutes' time. Please leave your luggage on the train, it will be taken to the school separately. As the train slowed, Harry felt a strange mix of emotions, excitement, apprehension, and a surprising sense of homecoming. Despite never having set foot in Hogwarts, some part of him recognized he was approaching his birth parents' world. The train stopped and students poured onto the small, dark platform. A lamp came bobbing over the heads of the students, and Harry heard a booming voice, "First years. First years over here." A giant of a man with a wild beard was calling the first-year students. Even Marcus would have looked small beside him. "Come on, follow me, any more first years? Mind your step, now." They followed the giant down a steep, narrow path that opened suddenly onto the edge of a great black lake. Perched atop a mountain on the other side, windows sparkling in the starry sky, was a vast castle with many turrets and towers. "No more N4 to a boat," the giant called, pointing to a fleet of little boats sitting in the water. Harry found himself sharing with Ron, Hermione, and a nervous-looking boy who must be the toad loser, Neville. As the boats glided across the lake, Harry stared up at the castle, sensing the ancient magic that saturated the very stones. It felt different from the vampire magic of Nightshade Manor, wilder, more chaotic, but with a welcoming warmth. They sailed through an underground passage and reached a small harbor where they clambered out onto rocks and pebbles. The giant led them up a passageway in the rock, coming out at last onto smooth, damp grass right in the shadow of the castle. They walked up a flight of stone steps and crowded around the huge oak front door. "Everyone here." The giant raised a gigantic fist and knocked 3 times on the castle door. It swung open immediately to reveal a tall, black-haired witch in emerald green robes with a very stern face. "The first years, Professor McGonagall," the giant said. "Thank you, Hagrid. I will take them from here." She led them into an entrance hall so large that Nightshade Manors could have fit inside it several times over. The stone walls were lit with flaming torches, the ceiling was too high to make out, and a magnificent marble staircase facing them led to the upper floors. Professor McGonagall showed them into a small, empty chamber off the hall. They crowded in, standing rather closer together than they would usually have done, peering about nervously. "Welcome to Hogwarts," said Professor McGonagall. "The start-of-term banquet will begin shortly, but before you take your seats in the Great Hall, you will be sorted into your houses." She explained the house system, Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, Ravenclaw, and Slytherin, and how the House Cup competition worked. "The sorting ceremony will take place in a few minutes in front of the rest of the school. I suggest you all smarten yourselves up as much as you can while you are waiting." Her eyes lingered for a moment on Neville's cloak, which was fastened under his left ear, and on Ron's smudged nose. Harry automatically straightened his posture, a reflex from Marcus's training. "I shall return when we are ready for you," said Professor McGonagall. "Please wait quietly." When she left, the chamber filled with nervous chatter. "How exactly do they sort us into houses?" Harry asked Ron. "Some sort of test, I think. Fred said it hurts a lot, but I think he was joking." Harry doubted it would be painful. Nothing in Lyra's explanations had suggested physical trials. More likely a magical assessment of character or potential. Several students behind them screamed, making Harry whirl around, hand automatically reaching for his concealed dagger. About 20 ghosts had just streamed through the back wall, pearly white and slightly transparent. They seemed to be arguing. Harry relaxed. Lyra had mentioned Hogwarts ghosts, imprints of deceased wizards, not true spiritual entities. Nothing like the shadow wraiths vampires sometimes employed. The ghosts noticed the first years and began introducing themselves until Professor McGonagall returned. "Move along now," she said sharply. "The sorting ceremony's about to start." The ghosts floated away through the opposite wall. "Now, form a line," Professor McGonagall told the first years, "and follow me." Harry got into line behind a boy with sandy hair, with Ron behind him, and they walked out of the chamber, back across the hall, and through a pair of double doors into the Great Hall. Harry had never seen such a strange and splendid place. Thousands of candles floated in midair over 4 long tables, where the rest of the students were sitting. At the top of the hall was another long table where the teachers sat. Professor McGonagall led the first years up to this table, so that they came to a halt in a line facing the other students, with the teachers behind them. Harry looked up at the velvety black ceiling dotted with stars. He heard Hermione whisper, "It's bewitched to look like the sky outside. I read about it in Hogwarts, a history." Professor McGonagall silently placed a four-legged stool in front of the first years. On top of the stool she put a pointed wizard's hat, patched, frayed, and extremely dirty. For a few seconds, there was complete silence. Then the hat twitched. A rip near the brim opened wide like a mouth, and the hat began to sing. The hat sang about the 4 Hogwarts houses and their different values. When it finished, the whole hall burst into applause. Professor McGonagall stepped forward with a long roll of parchment. "When I call your name, you will put on the hat and sit on the stool to be sorted." Harry watched as students were called alphabetically. The hat took different amounts of time with each student before shouting out their house. When Granger, Hermione, was called, the bushy-haired girl almost ran to the stool and jammed the hat eagerly on her head. The hat took nearly a minute before declaring, "Gryffindor." Malfoy, Draco, swaggered forward when his name was called. The hat had barely touched his head when it screamed, "Slytherin." More names were called. Then, finally, Potter, Harry. Whispers broke out across the hall like little hissing fires. "Potter, did she say? The Harry Potter?" Harry stepped forward confidently, ignoring the whispers. He sat on the stool, and the last thing he saw before the hat dropped over his eyes was the hall full of people craning to get a good look at him. Said a small voice in his ear. "Difficult. Very difficult. Plenty of courage, I see. Not a bad mind either. There's talent, oh my goodness, yes, and a nice thirst to prove yourself. But what's this? Blood magic? Vampire training? How unusual." Harry tensed. "That's private." "Everything is private in here, Mr. Potter," the hat replied, sounding amused. "I see it all but tell none. Now, where to put you? You have qualities of all houses, you know. Put me where I can best accomplish my goals," Harry thought firmly. "Ambitious indeed, but loyal to your vampire family, brave enough to walk 2 worlds, and clever enough to survive them both. Your path will not be easy, Mr. Potter, no matter which house I choose." The hat seemed to be having a debate with itself. Finally, it called out to the hall, "Slytherin." A shocked silence fell before the Slytherin table erupted in cheers. Harry removed the hat and walked confidently toward his new house, aware of the stunned looks from the other tables. From the teacher's table, he felt several intense gazes, particularly from an old man with silver hair and beard who could only be Albus Dumbledore, and a hook-nosed professor with greasy black hair who looked thoroughly shocked. Harry took a seat next to Draco, who looked pleasantly surprised. "Didn't see that coming, Potter," the blond boy said, extending his hand again. "Welcome to Slytherin." This time, Harry shook it without hesitation. "Thanks. Looks like we'll be housemates after all." The sorting continued. Ron joined Gryffindor with his brothers, looking disappointed to be separated from Harry. When the last student was sorted, Dumbledore got to his feet, beaming at the students with his arms opened wide. "Welcome. Welcome to a new year at Hogwarts. Before we begin our banquet, I would like to say a few words. And here they are, Nitwit. Blubber. Oddment. Tweak. Thank you." He sat back down as everyone clapped and cheered. Harry raised an eyebrow, wondering if the old wizard was genuinely eccentric or if it was a calculated persona. Food appeared on the golden plates, more than Harry had ever seen at once. He loaded his plate modestly, remembering that his vampire-accelerated metabolism needed more fuel than a normal wizard child. As they ate, Harry observed his fellow Slytherins. They were more reserved than the other houses, watching and assessing rather than boisterously celebrating. Harry approved of their caution. "So, Potter," said an older Slytherin boy, "where have you been all these years? There were all sorts of rumors after you vanished." Harry took a sip of pumpkin juice before answering. "With family," he said simply. "Distant relatives who preferred privacy." "Muggles?" someone asked with distaste. Harry smiled slightly. "Not exactly." His vague response seemed to intrigue his housemates rather than annoy them. Slytherins, it seemed, appreciated mysteries. After dinner, Dumbledore gave a few start-of-term notices, including a warning about the third-floor corridor on the right-hand side being out of bounds to anyone who didn't want to die a very painful death. Harry filed this information away. Dangerous objects or creatures in a school full of children. Interesting security choice. The Slytherin prefects led them from the Great Hall, down stone staircases into the dungeons. They stopped at a stretch of bare, damp stone wall. "Serpentis," the prefect said, and a concealed door slid open. The Slytherin common room was a long, low underground room with rough stone walls and ceiling. Greenish lamps hung on chains, and a fire crackled under an elaborately carved mantelpiece. High-backed chairs and dark wood tables were positioned throughout the space, and large windows revealed that they were partially underwater in the lake. "Boys' dormitories are down that passage," the prefect instructed. "First years in the first door. Your belongings have already been brought up." Harry followed the other first-year boys to their dormitory, a room with 6 four-poster beds hung with deep green, velvet curtains. Their trunks sat at the foot of each bed. Harry claimed one between the wall and another bed, preferring a defensible position as Marcus had taught him. As the others prepared for bed, Harry quietly unpacked a few essentials, including the blood mirror. He'd need to find a private place to activate it tomorrow to report his sorting to Lyra. While his dorm mates chatted and settled in, Harry gazed out the underwater window beside his bed, watching strange fish swim past in the darkness of the lake. Hogwarts was nothing like Nightshade Manor, yet there was something familiar in its ancient magic. He touched his blood pendant and thought of Lyra, Marcus, and Alara back home. They had prepared him for this moment, his entry into the wizarding world. Now it was up to him to navigate it, to learn its ways while staying true to his vampire upbringing. Harry Potter, the boy who lived, raised by vampires, sorted into Slytherin. He smiled to himself. This was just the beginning. Chapter 2, Two Worlds Colliding. Harry woke before his dorm mates, years of vampire training making early rising automatic. The underwater window beside his bed showed murky green light filtering through the lake. For a moment, he felt a pang of homesickness for Nightshade Manor's Gothic towers and the forest beyond. He slipped from bed silently, grabbed his toiletries, and headed to the showers. By the time the other Slytherin boys stirred, Harry was dressed, his daggers concealed beneath his robes, and reading a small book on wizard dueling techniques. "Bloody hell, Potter, do you even sleep?" grumbled Blaise Zabini, a tall boy with dark skin and aristocratic features. Harry glanced up with a slight smile. "Light sleeper. What's that you're reading?" Draco asked, peering over as he buttoned his shirt. Harry showed him the book cover. "Dueling. First years don't learn that," Draco said, looking impressed despite himself. "I like being prepared," Harry replied, slipping the book into his pocket. They headed to the Great Hall for breakfast, Draco naturally falling into step beside Harry, with Crabbe and Goyle trailing behind like bodyguards. Harry noted how the blonde boy had quickly positioned himself as Harry's main Slytherin connection, smart politics. The hall buzzed with morning conversations as students compared schedules. Harry examined his timetable, transfiguration with the Hufflepuffs first, then potions with the Gryffindors. Whispers followed him everywhere. Students pointed, stared, and muttered behind their hands, "There, look." "Where?" "Next to the blonde boy. Wearing the glasses. Did you see his face? Did you see his scar? Can't believe he's in Slytherin." Harry ignored them, focusing on his food and the letter that had just arrived with the Morning Owl Post, a plain envelope with a small nightshade flower seal. Draco eyed it curiously. Family crest. Something like that, Harry murmured, pocketing the letter for later. Not going to read it? Draco pressed. Privacy is valuable, Harry replied with a hint of ice in his tone that made Draco back off immediately. As they left the Great Hall, Harry noticed Ron Weasley watching him with disappointment, as though Harry had personally betrayed him by being sorted into Slytherin. Nearby, Hermione Granger was also observing him, but with calculation rather than judgment in her eyes. Professor McGonagall's Transfiguration classroom was orderly and austere. The stern witch wasted no time with pleasantries. Transfiguration is some of the most complex and dangerous magic you will learn at Hogwarts, she warned after turning her desk into a pig and back again. Anyone messing around in my class will leave and not come back. They began with turning matches into needles. Harry examined the match McGonagall placed before him, considering the theory he'd read. Magic was about intent and visualization, similar to blood magic principles, though the method of channeling differed. He pointed his wand at the match, focusing on the transformation he wanted. The wand felt strange compared to the direct connection of blood magic, like working through a translator rather than speaking directly. Aecus transmuto, he whispered, concentrating on the match becoming silver and sharp. The match quivered, then slowly transformed, the wood darkening to metallic silver, the tip sharpening to a point. Not perfect, but close. Impressive first attempt, Mr. Potter, McGonagall said, appearing beside his desk. Her eyes narrowed slightly. Have you practiced transfiguration before? Just theory, Professor, Harry answered truthfully. My guardians encouraged reading ahead. She studied him with an intensity that suggested she was looking for something specific. 5 points to Slytherin for preparation. Continue refining your technique. By the end of class, Harry had produced a perfect needle. Only Hermione Granger had managed the same, earning her a rare smile from McGonagall. As Harry packed his books, Hermione approached his desk. Your technique was interesting, she said without preamble. You whispered the incantation differently than the textbook suggests. Harry raised an eyebrow. You noticed that? I noticed details, she replied simply. The book recommends a sharper flick, but your movement was smoother. Why? It felt right, Harry said with a shrug. Magic responds to intent as much as technique. Hermione's eyes lit with interest. That's exactly what I've been thinking. Everyone treats the textbook instructions as absolute, but magic must have flexibility, or how would new spells ever be created? Despite himself, Harry smiled at her enthusiasm. Exactly. Wizards didn't discover magic, they discovered ways to interface with it. That's a fascinating perspective, she said, looking at him with new respect. Where did you, Hermione? We're going to be late for herbology, called a Gryffindor girl from the doorway. Coming. She turned back to Harry. See you in potions. Harry watched her go, intrigued. Her mind worked differently than the other students, questioning, analyzing, pushing boundaries. Useful traits in an ally. The letter from home waited until Harry found a private moment between classes. He slipped into an empty classroom, checked for watching eyes, both living and painted, and broke the seal. Your sorting is interesting but not unexpected. The House of Ambition suits your upbringing. We've activated monitoring on certain interested parties, the one with twinkling eyes has made inquiries about your guardianship. Exercise caution in your communications. The Hunter situation worsens. 3 outposts along the Eastern Territories reported attacks last night. M believes they're being coordinated by someone new. Stay vigilant but maintain your cover. E sends her love, her words, and a reminder about your supplements. Use the mirror tonight if possible. Blood and Shadow, L. Harry frowned. Vampire hunters attacking multiple outposts simultaneously was unusual. Typically they worked in small, isolated groups, fanatics rather than organized forces. Coordination suggested leadership. He burned the letter with a whispered word, watching as it disintegrated into ash. No evidence. Potions took place in the dungeons, not far from the Slytherin common room. The classroom had a distinctly gothic atmosphere that reminded Harry of Nightshade Manor's alchemy chamber. Jars of preserved specimens lined the walls, and cauldrons bubbled with mysterious substances. Professor Snape, the hook-nosed teacher Harry had noticed at the feast, began class by taking roll call. He paused at Harry's name, looking up with dark, cold eyes. "Ah, yes," he said softly, "Harry Potter. Our new celebrity." Some Slytherin snickered, but Harry met Snape's gaze calmly. The professor's eyes widened fractionally, as though surprised by something he saw there. Snape finished calling names and looked up at the class. "You are here to learn the subtle science and exact art of potion making," he began in barely more than a whisper. "As there is little foolish wand-waving here, many of you will hardly believe this is magic. I don't expect you will really understand the beauty of the softly simmering cauldron with its shimmering fumes, the delicate power of liquids that creep through human veins, bewitching the mind, and snaring the senses." Harry listened with genuine interest. Potions shared principles with blood alchemy that Lyra had taught him, the precise combining of ingredients to create magical effects. "Potter," Snape said suddenly. "What would I get if I added powdered root of asphodel to an infusion of wormwood?" Harry recognized the ingredients from his reading. "The draught of living death, sir. A powerful sleeping potion." Snape's eyes narrowed slightly. "Where would you look if I told you to find me a bezoar?" "The stomach of a goat, Professor. It's a stone that can neutralize most poisons." "What is the difference between monkshood and wolfsbane?" "They're the same plant, sir. Also called aconite." Snape stared at him, something unreadable flickering across his face. "Correct. It seems fame isn't everything." He turned to the rest of the class. "Well, why aren't you all copying that down?" They were set to work mixing a simple potion to cure boils. Harry partnered with Blaise Zabini, methodically preparing ingredients with the precision Marcus had drilled into him for blood rituals. Across the room, Hermione worked with similar focus, while Ron struggled alongside Neville Longbottom. Suddenly, acid green smoke and a loud hissing filled the dungeon. Neville had somehow melted his cauldron, and their potion was seeping across the stone floor, burning holes in people's shoes. Within seconds, the whole class was standing on their stools while Neville, who had been drenched in the potion, moaned in pain as angry red boils sprang up all over his arms and legs. "Idiot boy," snarled Snape, clearing the spilled potion away with one wave of his wand. "I suppose you added the porcupine quills before taking the cauldron off the fire?" Harry watched as Snape sent Neville to the hospital wing, then rounded on Ron, who had been working next to Neville, and took a point from Gryffindor. As they continued working, Harry caught Hermione watching him again. This time she didn't look away when caught, instead giving him a small, approving nod. The first week passed in a blur of classes. Harry excelled in practical work but kept his performance measured, good enough to earn points without drawing undue attention. Attention meant questions, and questions led to scrutiny he couldn't afford. Friday evening found Harry in the Ollery, sending a carefully coded update to Nightshade Manor via a school owl. He'd used the blood mirror once already to speak with Lyra, reporting on Dumbledore's subtle attempts to have other teachers evaluate Harry's home situation. "Talking to your mysterious family again?" Harry turned to find Hermione standing in the Ollery doorway, watching him with undisguised curiosity. "Just sending a letter," he replied neutrally. She approached, her school bag bulging with books. "You know, it's interesting. I've researched the disappearance of Harry Potter after his parents were killed. The official story says you were placed with Muggle relatives, yet you clearly weren't raised by Muggles." Harry tensed slightly. "What makes you say that?" "You move differently," she said simply. "You have knowledge of magical concepts beyond first-year level. And you sometimes use phrases that sound old-fashioned." "Maybe I'm just well-read," he countered. Hermione smiled. Maybe. But there's more to it. She hesitated, then added, I'm not trying to expose your secrets, Harry. I'm just curious. Harry studied her. Information was a valuable commodity, both giving and withholding it. What would Lyra do? Probably offer a partial truth to satisfy curiosity while concealing the critical details. I wasn't raised by the relatives Dumbledore intended, he admitted. Someone else found me first and decided I'd be safer with them. Wizards? Harry chose his words carefully. Magical beings with different traditions. They've taught me their magic alongside wizard basics. Hermione's eyes widened. Different magical traditions? Like what? Goblin magic? Elven? I can't say more, Harry said firmly. Family secrets. Instead of being offended, Hermione looked delighted by the mystery. Fair enough. For now. She changed subjects. Have you started the charms essay yet? I found some fascinating historical context about levitation spells across cultures. They walked back to the castle together, Hermione chattering about comparative magical theory. Harry found himself genuinely engaged in the conversation. She had insights about magical principles that aligned surprisingly well with what Lyra had taught him about the underlying nature of all magic. You should join our study group, she suggested as they reached the entrance hall. Just a few of us in the library on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Even though you're in Slytherin, she added with a small smile. Interhouse unity? Harry asked, amused. Practical networking, she corrected. Smart people should collaborate regardless of house politics. Harry laughed, a rare, genuine sound. Very Slytherin of you, Granger. She looked pleased rather than offended. I'll take that as a compliment. Tuesday at 7, then. We'll see, he replied, but they both knew he'd be there. October arrived, bringing colder weather and more complex classwork. Harry divided his time between maintaining his Slytherin connections and his growing friendship with Hermione, who never pressed about his background but clearly filed away every accidental reveal for future reference. Their Tuesday study sessions had expanded to include Susan Bones from Hufflepuff and Terry Boot from Ravenclaw, both intelligent students who asked questions rather than accepting textbook answers at face value. Ron sometimes joined too, though he seemed to spend more time watching Harry suspiciously than actually studying. Flying lessons had revealed Harry's natural talent on a broomstick, earning him a place as reserve seeker for the Slytherin Quidditch team, an unprecedented honor for a first year. Harry enjoyed the speed and freedom of flying, though he found the sport itself somewhat trivial compared to vampire battle training. It was during the third week of October that Harry first noticed something strange about Professor Quirrell. The defense against the dark arts teacher had always seemed nervous and incompetent, stuttering through lessons and jumping at shadows. But during a class on basic defensive spells, Harry caught a momentary shift. Quirrell's magical aura flickered, revealing something darker underneath. Harry had been trained by Lyra to sense magical signatures, a vampire skill refined over centuries of hunting magical prey. Most wizards projected consistent auras based on their innate magic. Quirrell's seemed to alternate between a weak, scattered energy and something concentrated and malevolent. After class, Harry lingered, pretending to gather his books slowly. "Is something you need, Mr. Potter?" Quirrell stammered. "Just curious about something, Professor," Harry said casually. "Have you ever encountered vampires in your travels?" Quirrell paled visibly. "The vampires? And nasty creatures. Met one in the Bee-Black Forest once. And never want to repeat the experience." Harry smiled slightly. "I've read they can sense magical auras. Fascinating ability, don't you think?" For an instant, Quirrell's eyes sharpened, the stutter vanishing. "What are you implying, boy?" Then, as quickly as it had appeared, the change was gone, replaced by the familiar nervous demeanor. Sorry, these sea creatures make me nervous just thinking about them." "Of course, Professor. Sorry to bother you," Harry said, filing away the reaction. Definitely something off about Quirrell, possibly possession, based on the dual auras. He'd need to report this to Lyra. That night, Harry slipped out of the Slytherin dormitory after his roommates were asleep. Finding privacy in a castle full of nosy portraits, ghosts, and a caretaker with a magical cat required planning. He'd discovered an unused classroom in the dungeons where the silencing spell still functioned, likely a forgotten dueling practice room. He locked the door with both standard charms and a blood ward, then pulled out the ornate black mirror from his trunk. Pricking his finger, he let 3 drops of blood fall onto the reflective surface. Sanguis loquitur, he whispered. The mirror's surface rippled like disturbed water. When it cleared, Lyra's face appeared, her dark eyes examining him critically. You're using magic to conceal fatigue, she observed immediately. Harry smiled wryly. Hello to you too, Mother. Don't deflect. You're not feeding properly. The supplements aren't as effective as fresh blood, he admitted. But I'm managing. Lyra frowned. I'll send more concentrated vials with the next delivery. Now report. Harry quickly detailed his discoveries about Quirrell, describing the fluctuating magical signature and momentary personality shift. Possession is possible, Lyra agreed when he finished. Though rare among wizards. Their minds typically fracture under such invasion. Could it be connected to the attacks on the outposts? Harry asked. Lyra's expression darkened. The situation has escalated. 3 more havens were attacked last night, coordinated strikes with silver weapons and fire. Marcus believes they're being directed by someone with knowledge of our patrol patterns. Harry felt a chill. Casualties? 12 dead, 20 injured. Elara was at the northern haven during the attack. Harry's heart clenched. Is she? She's fine, Lyra assured him. She fought well. But we've relocated the younger vampires to the main haven for protection. I should come home, Harry said immediately. If the Coven is under threat, no, Lyra cut him off. Your mission at Hogwarts remains crucial. We need to understand what's happening in the wizard world. But, this isn't a discussion, Harry, she said firmly. The council has decided. He wanted to argue but knew it would be futile. Vampire hierarchy was absolute, especially in crisis. At least let me speak to Elara, he requested. Lyra nodded, and the mirror's view shifted. Moments later, Elara's face appeared. She looked different, a thin silver scar now ran along her left cheek, fresh enough that it hadn't fully healed despite vampire regeneration. Hey, blood brother, she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Don't look so worried. You should see the other guys. What happened? Harry demanded. Elara's usual playfulness was subdued. They knew our weaknesses, came prepared with silver nets and sanctified weapons. Not typical hunters. Someone's upgraded their arsenal and tactics. And that? Harry pointed to her scar. Blessed silver blade. Will heal eventually. She attempted a more genuine smile. How's wizard school? Learning lots of silly incantations? Elara. I'm fine, Harry, she insisted. Focus on your mission. We need you there right now, not here. Harry clenched his jaw but nodded. Tell Marcus to double the eastern patrols. They've been hitting that sector repeatedly, might be trying to establish a pattern to draw forces away from somewhere else. Elara looked impressed. Strategic thinking. Marcus will be proud. Just be careful, Harry said. All of you. After ending the connection, Harry sat in the dark classroom, torn between duty and desire. His vampire family was under threat, yet he was stuck at Hogwarts playing the role of ordinary student. The disconnect felt increasingly unbearable. The next morning at breakfast, Draco noticed Harry's distraction. Bad news from home, he asked quietly. Harry looked up sharply. What makes you say that? You've been staring at your porridge for 10 minutes without eating, Draco pointed out. And you've checked the male owls 3 times. Harry sometimes forgot that while Draco played the entitled pureblood, he was also surprisingly observant. Family issues, Harry said vaguely. Draco nodded, not pushing further. Another quality Harry appreciated: for all his faults, Draco understood privacy. Across the hall, Hermione was watching Harry with concern. She'd become attuned to his moods over their study sessions, often noticing subtle shifts others missed. The owls arrived in their usual morning flurry. Harry didn't expect anything, having just communicated via mirror, so he was surprised when a sleek black owl landed before him, carrying a small package marked with the nightshade seal. He quickly tucked it into his robes, ignoring curious glances from his housemates. "Expecting something?" Draco asked. "No," Harry replied truthfully. Which made the delivery concerning. He excused himself early and found an empty corridor to examine the package. Inside was a vial of concentrated blood, darker and thicker than his usual supplements, and a note: emergency rations. Defensive measures activated around the manor. Communications blackout for 72 hours. Do not attempt contact until you hear from us. Harry's stomach dropped. A communications blackout meant the situation had become dire enough for the Coven to activate ancient protective wards, measures that sealed the haven completely from outside magical detection but also prevented any messages from getting in or out. Whatever was happening, it was bad enough that Marcus had risked sending a physical message. Harry pocketed the blood vial, mind racing. 3 days without knowing if his family was safe, it was unbearable. He made it through his morning classes on autopilot, his mind constantly returning to the potential threats facing Nightshade Manor. By lunchtime, he'd made his decision. Family came before mission. He needed to check on them personally. Getting out of Hogwarts would be challenging but not impossible. The castle had numerous secret passages, several leading to Hogsmeade according to older Slytherins. From there, he could use shadow-walking techniques to travel significant distances, though not as efficiently as full vampires. Harry began planning his temporary escape, cataloging what he'd need: his daggers, blood supplements for energy, protective amulets from his trunk. He could leave after curfew, be at Nightshade Manor by morning, and return before anyone noticed his absence. "You're planning something reckless," Hermione's voice interrupted his thoughts. Harry startled. He hadn't heard her approach the isolated corner of the library where he'd been sketching escape routes. "I'm studying," he lied, covering his notes. "No, you're not," she said, sitting across from him. "You've been distracted all day, you missed our study session without sending word, and now you're drawing what looks suspiciously like exit routes from the castle." Harry stared at her. Even Alara wasn't this perceptive. "It's none of your concern," he said finally. Hermione leaned forward, lowering her voice. "Harry, I know we haven't known each other long, but I consider you a friend. Friends help each other. Whatever trouble you're in, let me help." The sincerity in her eyes was disarming. Harry had made allies at Hogwarts, cultivated useful connections, but friendship? That was different, a human concept the vampires respected but rarely practiced. "My family is in danger," he said after a long silence. "I need to check on them." "You're planning to leave Hogwarts?" She looked alarmed. "That's against at least 15 school rules." "Rules don't matter when family is threatened," Harry replied, an edge entering his voice. Hermione studied him. "These guardians who raised you, they're very important to you, aren't they?" "They're everything," Harry said simply. "They saved me, raised me, trained me. I owe them my loyalty." She nodded slowly. "I understand loyalty, but sneaking out is dangerous. What if something happens to you? Then you can't help anyone." "I can take care of myself." "I'm sure you can," she said diplomatically. "But what about magical tracking? Underage wizards have the trace on them. The Ministry can detect magic performed outside of Hogwarts." Harry hadn't considered that. Vampire havens were naturally shielded from wizard detection, but traveling between would expose him. There must be a way around it, he muttered. There probably is, Hermione agreed. But you'd need time to research it properly. Rushing off tonight would be reckless. Harry clenched his fists under the table, frustration building. She was right, but the thought of waiting while his family faced unknown threats was agonizing. What if? Hermione hesitated, then continued, what if we found a way to check on them without you leaving Hogwarts? Some kind of communication spell. Standard methods won't work, Harry said. They've activated protective wards. Then non-standard methods, she pressed. The library must have something. Give me tonight to research. If I can't find an alternative by tomorrow, I won't try to stop you. Harry weighed his options. Hermione was resourceful and determined. If anyone could find an overlooked method of communication, it would be her. One night, he agreed reluctantly. But I go tomorrow regardless. She nodded, already pulling parchment from her bag to make notes. I'll need to know more about these protective wards. Generally speaking, what kind of magic are we trying to bypass? Harry hesitated. Sharing vampire magic with a wizard was forbidden by Coven law. But if it could help ensure his family's safety. Ancient blood wards, he said quietly. Designed to create a pocket dimension around a location, removing it temporarily from magical detection. Hermione's eyes widened. Blood magic? That's considered dark arts by the Ministry. Not all traditions share the Ministry's classification system, Harry replied carefully. To his surprise, Hermione didn't look horrified or judgmental. Instead, her expression turned thoughtful. Blood connections transcend normal magical barriers, she mused. That's why certain family spells can't be blocked by standard protections. She began scribbling rapidly. I think I know where to start looking. True to her word, Hermione spent the evening in the library. Harry attended dinner in the Great Hall, maintaining appearances while his mind remained fixed on Nightshade Manor. He noticed Professor Quirrell was absent from the staff table, the third time this week. As Harry left the hall, a hand gripped his shoulder. He turned to find Marcus Flint, the Slytherin Quidditch captain. Potter, Snape wants to see you in his office, Flint said. Didn't say why. Harry nodded, concern growing. Had the head of Slytherin somehow detected his escape plans? Snape's office reflected the man himself, meticulously organized and somewhat forbidding. Shelves lined with potions, ingredients and ancient texts covered the walls, and a desk piled with student essays occupied the center of the room. Mr. Potter, Snape acknowledged without looking up from the paper he was marking. Sit. Harry obeyed, keeping his expression neutral. It has come to my attention, Snape began, still writing, that you received concerning news this morning. News that has you distracted. Harry tensed. Sir. Snape finally looked up, his dark eyes penetrating. As head of Slytherin House, I make it my business to know when my students are planning something foolish. I don't know what you mean, Professor, Harry replied evenly. Don't insult my intelligence, Potter. Snape set down his quill. You've been agitated all day, checking exits, missing appointments. Classic signs of someone planning to leave. Harry remained silent, neither confirming nor denying. Snape sighed. Contrary to popular belief, I do not enjoy seeing my students endanger themselves. Whatever family emergency you believe requires your personal attention, I assure you that sneaking out of Hogwarts will only compound the problem. With respect, sir, you don't understand the situation, Harry said carefully. Then enlighten me. Snape leaned back in his chair. These mysterious guardians who raised you, who are they, exactly? The direct question caught Harry off guard. Snape was the first teacher to openly acknowledge the gap in Harry's official history. I can't say, Harry replied. Can't or won't? Both. Snape studied him. The headmaster believes you were raised by your mother's Muggle relatives. I, however, see no evidence of Muggle upbringing in your behavior or magical knowledge. Professor Dumbledore was mistaken about my placement, Harry said carefully. Clearly, Snape agreed dryly. The question remains, who has been raising the boy who lived for the past decade? Certainly not the family Dumbledore intended. Harry met Snape's gaze steadily. My guardians wish to remain anonymous for security reasons. Security reasons, Snape repeated skeptically. And now they're in danger, prompting you to consider a reckless rescue attempt. Put that way, it did sound foolish. Harry frowned. Whatever you're planning, Potter, postpone it, Snape advised. If your guardians are truly in danger, rushing in without information or backup will help no one. The logic was sound, the same argument Hermione had made. But logic didn't ease the knot of worry in Harry's stomach. What would you suggest instead, sir? Harry asked. Something like approval flickered in Snape's eyes at Harry's willingness to listen. Patient observation. Gathering intelligence before acting. Slytherin traits, Potter, which you would do well to employ. Harry nodded slowly. Between Hermione's research and Snape's warning, perhaps rashness could wait another day. I understand, Professor. See that you do. Dismissed. Harry didn't sleep that night, instead practicing blood meditation techniques in his curtained bed. The ritual helped calm his mind and sharpen his senses, he'd need both if circumstances forced action. At breakfast, Hermione caught his eye from the Gryffindor table, giving a small nod. She had found something. They met between classes in their usual and used classroom. Blood tracking spells, she said without preamble, dropping a heavy tome on a desk. Ancient magic that predates modern ministry classifications. Not technically illegal because they're considered extinct practices, but they still work if performed correctly. Harry examined the book, Forgotten Familial Magics, Blood Bonds Through the Ages. The page she'd marked showed a tracking ritual that could locate blood relatives across vast distances, even through normal protective enchantments. This could work, he admitted, impressed. But it requires blood from a direct relative, which I don't have. Not true, Hermione countered. You mentioned blood wards. Those require blood donations to establish, correct? If your guardians used your blood in creating their wards, there's a magical connection already established. We just need to activate it from this end. Harry stared at her. How do you know so much about blood magic? It's not exactly standard Hogwarts curriculum. She flushed slightly. I read extensively. There's an entire section in the library on ancient magical practices, technically for historical research only, but the books aren't restricted. She pointed to the spell. The incantation is fairly simple, but it requires a focus object connected to the person you're tracking. I have something that would work, Harry said, thinking of Lyra's blood pendant. Good. We'll need to perform the spell at midnight for maximum effectiveness. She hesitated. It also requires 2 people, one to channel magic, one to focus on the blood connection. You're volunteering? Harry asked, surprised. Hermione straightened. I'm helping a friend. Besides, I'm curious to see if it works. Harry smiled slightly. Intellectual curiosity and friendship, powerful motivators. Indeed, she agreed. Meet me in the astronomy tower at 11:45 tonight. It's deserted on Wednesdays since only 5th years have midnight classes, and they're scheduled for Tuesdays and Thursdays. The day crawled by, each class an exercise in patience as Harry waited for night to fall. He attended dinner, completed homework in the Slytherin common room, and pretended to retire early while actually preparing for the tracking ritual. At 11:30, Harry slipped from his dormitory under a basic concealment charm. The Slytherin prefects were easy to avoid, their patrol patterns were predictable, and Harry had mapped them weeks ago. Filch and his cat presented more of a challenge, but Harry had vampire-enhanced senses on his side. The astronomy tower was deserted as predicted. Harry arrived first, using the time to prepare the ritual space according to the book's instructions, a circle drawn in chalk, candles at cardinal points, and the pendant placed at the center. Hermione arrived 5 minutes early, slightly out of breath. "Had to dodge Filch on the 3rd floor," she whispered. "He nearly caught me." "But he didn't," Harry noted approvingly. "You're getting better at this." "I'm not sure that's a compliment," she replied, but looked pleased nonetheless. They took positions on opposite sides of the circle. Harry removed the stopper from Lyra's blood vial in the pendant, allowing the scent of vampire blood to fill the air. "The spell requires you to focus entirely on the person you're seeking," Hermione reminded him, consulting her notes one last time. "Visualize them clearly in your mind while I perform the incantation." Harry nodded, closing his eyes and concentrating on Lyra, her ageless face, dark eyes, the powerful presence she carried effortlessly. He extended his magical senses, reaching for the blood connection they shared through years of rituals. Hermione began chanting in Latin, her pronunciation surprisingly accurate for someone who'd only read the spell. Magic built around them, a different kind than Harry was accustomed to, less structured than wand work, more primal and intuitive like blood magic. The pendant in the center began to glow red, the blood inside bubbling slightly. "Sanguis ad sanguinem, quaero te. Ostend mihi viam ad seor tuum," Hermione intoned, her voice growing stronger. Harry felt the magic pulse, connecting with his own core. The image of Lyra in his mind sharpened, then expanded to show Nightshade Manor. He could see the protective dome of magic surrounding it, shimmering like heat waves. Within the barrier, figures moved, vampires patrolling, others fortifying defenses. "I can see them," he whispered. "They're alive. Defending the haven." Hermione continued the spell, sweat beading on her forehead from the effort of channeling unfamiliar magic. The pendant's glow intensified. Suddenly, Harry sensed awareness from the other end. Lyra had detected the magical probe. Her mental presence touched his briefly across the connection, surprise followed by understanding. "Harry?" Her voice echoed in his mind. "Mother," he responded silently. "Are you safe?" "For now." Major attack repelled. 37 hunters, well equipped. Elara injured but healing. Do not attempt contact again, draws attention to the connection. Who's coordinating them? Uncertain. Wizard involvement suspected. Stay at Hogwarts. Complete your mission. We will contact when safe. The connection began to fade as Lyra withdrew from the blood link. "Be careful," Harry projected desperately. "Always, my son," came her fading reply. Blood and shadow. The pendant's glow dimmed, then extinguished. Hermione completed the final words of the spell, then slumped back, exhausted. "Did it work?" she asked breathlessly. Harry nodded, relief washing through him. "They're alive. Under siege but holding." Hermione smiled weakly. "Good. That was intense." "You did well," Harry said, genuinely impressed. Most wizard-trained magic users couldn't channel that spell effectively. Most wouldn't try, she admitted, wiping sweat from her brow. It felt different from normal spells, more personal. Blood magic works directly with life force, Harry explained, carefully resealing the pendant. It bypasses the abstraction layer that wands create. Hermione's eyes widened. "That's how you were raised to think of magic, isn't it? As direct manipulation of life force rather than channeled through wands and incantations." Harry realized he'd said too much, but Hermione was already connecting dots he'd carelessly scattered. "Your guardians," she said slowly. "They're not just non-traditional wizards. They're something else entirely." Her eyes searched his face. "Beings who use blood magic naturally, who operate outside ministry classifications." "Hermione," Harry warned. "Vampires," she whispered. "You were raised by vampires." Harry froze, instinctively reaching for one of his concealed daggers before catching himself. That's a serious accusation. It's not an accusation, she said quickly. It's an observation. The way you move, your knowledge of blood magic, your enhanced senses I've noticed during study sessions. She leaned forward. Harry, are you a vampire? No, he answered truthfully. I'm human. Mostly. Mostly? Her voice rose slightly before she controlled it. What does mostly mean? Harry weighed his options. Hermione had just helped him contact his family, potentially preventing him from making a dangerous mistake. She'd worked blood magic without hesitation to help a friend. Perhaps she deserved some truth. I was raised by a vampire coven, he admitted quietly. They've trained me in their magic and enhanced certain abilities through blood rituals, but I'm not turned. I'm still fundamentally human. Rather than fear or disgust, Hermione's face showed fascination. That's incredible. I've read that vampire covens almost never accept human children. They must be extraordinary. Harry smiled despite himself. They are. Is that why Dumbledore doesn't know where you've been? Because the Ministry would never approve of vampires raising the boy who lived. Exactly, Harry confirmed. The wizarding world has many prejudices against what they call dark creatures. Hermione snorted. That's putting it mildly. The legislation against non-human magical beings is medieval. She hesitated. Your secret is safe with me, Harry. I won't tell anyone. Why? He asked bluntly. Most wizards would consider it their duty to report a vampire-raised child. I'm not most wizards, she said simply. I judge based on actions, not classifications. You've been nothing but kind and helpful to me, even though I'm Muggleborn and you're. She gestured vaguely, raised by ancient blood-drinking predators. Harry laughed, he couldn't help it. Put that way, the situation did seem absurd. Thank you, he said sincerely. For helping tonight, and for understanding. That's what friends do, she replied. Now, we should get back before Filch catches us. The Halloween feast filled the great hall with floating pumpkins, live bats, and mountains of sweets. Harry sat at the Slytherin table beside Draco, watching the festivities with mixed feelings. Halloween had always been a somber occasion at Nightshade Manor, the anniversary of his parents' deaths and his rescue by Lyra. His mind remained focused on his vampire family. The blood-tracking spell had confirmed they were alive but under threat. Marcus's warning to avoid contact for 72 hours suggested continued danger. Harry felt torn between worlds more acutely than ever. The feast was interrupted when Professor Quirrell sprinted into the hall, his turban askew and terror on his face. Troll. In the dungeons. Thought you ought to know. He then sank to the floor in a dead faint. Chaos erupted. Dumbledore shot purple firecrackers from his wand to silence the hall. Prefects, he rumbled, lead your houses back to the dormitories immediately. The Slytherin prefect stood. Our dormitories are in the dungeons. Slytherins will remain in the Great Hall until the dungeons are secured, Dumbledore amended. As students began organizing, Harry remembered something crucial: Hermione wasn't at the feast. She'd been upset earlier after overhearing Ron make unkind comments about her know-it-all behavior and had retreated to the girls' bathroom to cry. Harry caught Ron's eye across the hall. The redhead's guilty expression confirmed he'd realized the same thing. Making a split-second decision, Harry slipped away from the Slytherin group. Ron broke from the Gryffindors at the same moment, and they converged in the entrance hall. Hermione doesn't know about the troll, Ron said urgently. Girls' bathroom on the first floor, Harry confirmed. Let's go. They hurried through corridors, ducking behind statues whenever they heard footsteps. Turning a corner, they spotted the troll, 12 feet tall, granite-gray skin, with a tiny head perched on a boulder-like body. The stench was overwhelming. It was shuffling into a doorway. The keys in the lock, Harry whispered. We could lock it in. Ron nodded. They crept forward. Harry reached for the key, turned it, and backed away quickly. Yes. Ron whispered triumphantly. Their celebration died instantly at the sound of a high-pitched scream from within the room. Hermione, they said together. Harry drew his wand and one of his concealed daggers. Unlock it. Ron fumbled with the key. The moment the door opened, they rushed inside to find Hermione shrinking against the opposite wall, looking ready to faint. The troll was advancing on her, knocking sinks off the walls as it went. Distract it. Harry commanded, his vampire training kicking in. Ron grabbed a tap and threw it against the wall. The troll stopped, blinking stupidly, then turned toward Ron instead, giving Harry time to circle behind it. Hey, P-Brain! Ron yelled, throwing more debris. The troll roared, swinging its massive club toward Ron. Harry seized the opportunity. He sprinted forward, vampire-enhanced speed carrying him across the bathroom in a blur. Leaping onto the troll's back, he drove his silver dagger into the base of its skull with practiced precision. The troll staggered, club dropping from its hand. Harry withdrew the blade and stabbed again, this time aiming for the critical juncture where spine met skull. The troll collapsed with a thunderous crash that shook the entire bathroom. Harry jumped clear, landing in a crouch beside the fallen creature. The entire encounter had taken less than 10 seconds. Ron and Hermione stared at him in shock. Bloody hell, Ron whispered. How did you? Harry realized his mistake immediately. No ordinary first year could have taken down a mountain troll with a single dagger strike. He'd moved with vampire speed and struck with trained precision, forgetting to maintain his cover in the heat of combat. Before he could formulate an explanation, the bathroom door banged open. Professors McGonagall, Snape, and Quirrell rushed in, stopping short at the sight of the dead troll, and Harry crouched beside it, bloody dagger still in hand. What on earth were you thinking? McGonagall asked, cold fury in her voice. You're lucky you weren't killed. Why aren't you in your dormitories? Harry quickly concealed the dagger up his sleeve. It's my fault, Professor, he began, but Hermione interrupted. Please, Professor McGonagall, they were looking for me. Miss Granger. I went looking for the troll because I thought I could deal with it on my own, you know, because I've read all about them. Ron dropped his wand in shock. Hermione Granger, telling a lie to a teacher. If they hadn't found me, I'd be dead now, she continued. Harry distracted it while Ron knocked it out with its own club. Harry glanced at Snape, who was looking at him with narrowed eyes. The professor's gaze dropped to Harry's sleeve where the dagger was hidden, then to the precise wound at the base of the troll's skull. He clearly didn't believe Hermione's story. Well, in that case, said Professor McGonagall, staring at the three of them, Miss Granger, you foolish girl, how could you think of tackling a mountain troll on your own? Hermione hung her head. 5 points will be taken from Gryffindor for this, said McGonagall. I'm very disappointed in you. If you're not hurt at all, you'd better get off to Gryffindor Tower. Hermione left. McGonagall turned to Harry and Ron. Well, I still say you were lucky, but not many first years could have taken on a full-grown mountain troll. You each win 5 points for your houses. Professor Dumbledore will be informed of this. You may go. They hurried out of the bathroom. When they were 2 floors up, Ron finally spoke. That was bloody brilliant, Harry. But what was that thing you stabbed it with? Just a knife, Harry said evasively. Lucky strike. Lucky? Ron looked incredulous. You moved faster than anyone I've ever seen. And you knew exactly where to stab it. Adrenaline, Harry shrugged. Makes people do extraordinary things. Ron didn't look convinced, but his tone was admiring rather than suspicious. Whatever it was, you saved our lives. Should have been more than 5 points. They parted at the marble staircase, Ron heading up to Gryffindor Tower while Harry descended toward the dungeons. He'd barely made it halfway when a voice stopped him. "Potter." Harry turned to find Snape watching him from an alcove. "Professor." "That was no lucky strike," Snape said without preamble. "That was a trained kill technique." Harry remained silent, neither confirming nor denying. "I've seen vampire hunters dispatch creatures with similar precision," Snape continued, watching Harry's reaction carefully. "Curious skill for an 11-year-old wizard to possess." Harry met Snape's gaze steadily. "I told you my guardians valued preparation, sir." "Indeed." Snape studied him a moment longer. "Be more careful about revealing your unusual education, Potter. Not everyone will be as discreet as I am." With that cryptic warning, Snape swept away, his black robes billowing behind him. News of the troll incident spread through Hogwarts by morning, growing more elaborate with each retelling. By lunch, rumors claimed Harry had wrestled the troll bare-handed while Ron had levitated it through a window. "Fighting trolls, Potter?" Draco asked as they walked to Charms. "Bit Gryffindorish, isn't it?" "Saving a fellow student seemed prudent," Harry replied. "Besides, having Hermione Granger indebted to me has strategic value." Draco chuckled. "Very Slytherin after all." The troll incident cemented an unlikely friendship between Harry, Ron, and Hermione. Ron had finally overcome his suspicion of Harry's Slytherin status, while Hermione's secret knowledge of Harry's vampire connection created a special bond between them. They began meeting regularly, sometimes for study sessions, sometimes just to talk. Ron brought wizard perspective and chess strategy, Hermione contributed boundless knowledge and logical thinking, and Harry added combat skills and strategic planning from his vampire training. It was during one such meeting in late November that they first discussed the mystery of the third-floor corridor. "It's guarding something," Hermione explained, having connected several clues including Hagrid's slip about what Fluffy's guarding, and a Gringotts break-in reported in the Daily Prophet. "Something valuable that Dumbledore's protecting." "Fluffy?" Ron asked incredulously. "Three-headed dog," Harry clarified, having encountered the creature during a night exploration. "Classical Cerberus-type guardian beast." "And you just happened to find it?" Ron looked impressed and alarmed. Harry shrugged. "I like knowing my surroundings." Hermione gave him a knowing look. "Vampire-trained night prowling," she'd call it privately. "The real question," Harry continued, "is what's valuable enough to need that kind of protection?" "And who's trying to steal it," Hermione added. Harry thought of Quirrell's fluctuating magical signature. "I have suspicions." They spent the next hour compiling theories and evidence, working together seamlessly despite their different backgrounds. For the first time since arriving at Hogwarts, Harry felt something like belonging, not just to his vampire family, but to this unlikely trio they'd formed. As winter approached, Harry continued balancing his dual existence, Slytherin student by day, vampire-trained warrior by night. The attacks on Nightshade Manor had temporarily ceased, though Lyra warned in their mirror communications that the hunters were likely regrouping rather than retreating. Whatever was coming, Harry would be ready. He had family in both worlds now, and he would protect them all. Chapter 3, Blood of Two Worlds. The Christmas holidays arrived with a blanket of snow covering Hogwarts grounds. Most students packed their trunks, eager to return home to families and festive celebrations. Harry faced a different situation. Lyra had sent word that he should remain at school over the break. "The hunters know our connection to you now," she'd explained during their last mirror conversation. "They've been watching transportation routes to Nightshade Manor. Your arrival might lead them directly to us." Harry understood the logic but felt the separation keenly. Christmas at the manor had always been a unique blend of ancient vampire traditions and modern celebrations, more for Harry's benefit than the vampires, who viewed human holidays with amused tolerance. "Staying for the holidays, Potter?" Draco asked as he packed his expensive clothes into a monogrammed trunk. "Seems so," Harry replied, keeping his tone neutral. "Father invited you to the manor, you know." Draco closed his trunk with a snap. The offer still stands. Harry raised an eyebrow. Your father invited me. He doesn't even know me. Draco smirked. He knows you're Harry Potter, sorted into Slytherin, and friends with his son. That's enough to warrant interest. I'm sure it is, Harry murmured. Lucius Malfoy's interest was exactly the kind of attention Lyra had warned him to avoid, powerful wizards with unknown agendas. Your call, Draco shrugged. But spending Christmas alone at Hogwarts sounds dreadful. I won't be alone, Harry said, thinking of Ron and Hermione, who were both staying, Ron because his parents were visiting his brother Charlie in Romania, Hermione to access the library's restricted section with fewer prying eyes. Ah yes, your fascinating cross-house friendships, Draco drawled, but without real malice. Over the term, he'd grown accustomed to Harry's unusual social connections, even if he didn't approve. After the Slytherins departed, Hogwarts transformed into a quieter, almost peaceful place. With only a handful of students remaining, Harry had freedom to move through the castle without constantly maintaining his cover. He spent mornings exploring hidden passages, afternoons in the library with Hermione, and evenings playing wizard chess with Ron in the Great Hall, where houses mixed freely during the holiday. Christmas morning brought unexpected surprises. Harry woke to a small pile of presents at the foot of his otherwise empty dormitory bed. The first package contained an exquisite set of enchanted daggers from Lyra, silver-plated steel with runes etched along the blades. The note simply read, "For both worlds." Marcus had sent a dragon-hide combat vest that could be worn under robes, while Alara's gift was a collection of blood-replenishing potions disguised as mundane sweets. For emergencies, her note explained. Also they taste like cherries. More surprising were gifts from his wizard friends, a hand-knitted emerald sweater from Ron's mother, an elegant eagle feather quill from Hermione, and even a small box of chocolates from Draco. The final package had no name. Inside, Harry found a fluid, silvery cloth that seemed to flow like water. When he draped it over his arm, the limb disappeared completely. An invisibility cloak, he breathed, recognizing it from Lyra's descriptions of rare magical artifacts. The attached note read only, "Your father left this in my possession before he died. Use it well." Harry examined the handwriting, looping and elegant, almost certainly Dumbledore's. The headmaster giving him a tool for breaking rules seemed contradictory, yet entirely in keeping with the cryptic game Harry sensed the old wizard was playing. That night, Harry tested the cloak by exploring the restricted section of the library. His quest for information about Nicholas Flamel, whom they'd identified as connected to whatever Fluffy was guarding, led to an unexpected discovery. Fleeing from Filch after accidentally dropping a screaming book, Harry found himself in an abandoned classroom containing nothing but an ornate mirror. The inscription along the top read, "Erist stra eru oit ube kafru oit anwosi." Harry approached cautiously, vampire training making him wary of magical objects with unknown properties. Standing before the mirror, he expected to see only himself, perhaps with the cloak's hood down. Instead, he gasped. The mirror showed Harry surrounded by people, his vampire family and birth parents together. Lyra stood proudly with her hand on his shoulder. Marcus loomed protectively nearby, while Alara grinned mischievously at his side. And in front of them all stood James and Lily Potter, smiling with tears in their eyes, reaching toward him. "It's not real," Harry whispered, fighting the urge to touch the glass. "Indeed it is not," came Dumbledore's voice from behind him. Harry whirled, instantly dropping into a defensive stance before catching himself. The headmaster stood in the shadows, watching with those penetrating blue eyes. "The mirror of Erist shows us nothing more or less than the deepest desire of our hearts," Dumbledore explained, moving forward. "You, who have never known your birth parents, see them standing with those who raised you, both families united and at peace." Harry tensed. How much did Dumbledore know about those who raised you? "The mirror will be moved tomorrow," Dumbledore continued. "I ask you not to go looking for it again. It does not do to dwell on dreams, Harry, and forget to live." Harry nodded, but his mind raced with implications. Dumbledore had called him Harry, not Mr. Potter, a deliberate informality. And he'd mentioned those who raised him without demanding identification. The old wizard was fishing, hoping Harry would volunteer information. "Sir," Harry said carefully, "what do you see when you look in the mirror?" Dumbledore smiled sadly. I see myself holding a pair of thick, woolen socks. One can never have enough socks." Harry didn't need vampire senses to detect the lie. January brought the return of students and the resumption of classes. It also brought breakthrough in their flannel research when Hermione remembered where she'd read the name, on Dumbledore's chocolate frog card, identifying Flammel as an alchemist who worked with Dumbledore on the Philosopher's Stone. The Philosopher's Stone? Ron exclaimed when Hermione explained her discovery in the library. That turns any metal into pure gold and produces the elixir of life, which makes the drinker immortal. That explains the security, Harry said thoughtfully. A stone that grants immortality would attract all kinds of attention. Including Voldemort's, Hermione added, ignoring Ron's wince at the name. If he's still out there in some form, the elixir of life would be exactly what he needs to return. Harry considered this. Quirrell's behavior makes more sense now. Quirrell? Ron looked confused. What's he got to do with anything? Harry and Hermione exchanged glances. She knew about his ability to sense magical signatures but had kept that secret along with his vampire connection. Just a theory, Harry said vaguely. He's been acting strangely, especially around the third-floor corridor. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of an unremarkable brown owl carrying a letter for Harry. The plain envelope concealed a sheet of parchment with a single line in Elara's handwriting, "Blood Mirror. Tonight. Emergency." Harry's stomach clenched. Elara wouldn't risk sending a physical message unless the situation was dire. That night, after ensuring his dorm mates were asleep, Harry slipped out under his invisibility cloak. He made his way to his usual secure location, an abandoned dungeon storeroom he'd warded with both wizard spells and blood magic. Activating the mirror, he expected to see Lyra or Marcus. Instead, Elara's face appeared, looking harried and exhausted. "Thank the ancients," she breathed upon seeing him. "We weren't sure this would connect." "What's happened?" Harry demanded, noting a fresh set of healing wounds across her cheek. "Major attack," she said grimly. Different than before, coordinated magical assault that partially breached the Haven's defenses. 15 dead, including council members Cyrus and Valdis. Harry felt as though he'd been punched. Cyrus had been teaching him blood alchemy since he was 5. Valdis had crafted his first ritual daggers. And Lyra? Marcus? Alive but injured. Marcus lost an arm, it'll regrow, but slowly. Lyra took a blessed silver blade to the chest. She's stable but weakened. Who did this? Harry asked, his voice deadly quiet. "That's why I'm contacting you," Elara said urgently. The attackers used wizard magic alongside hunter weapons, spells specifically designed to disrupt blood wards. Someone's teaching vampire hunters how to counter our oldest defenses. Harry's mind raced. Wizard-trained hunters. That's unprecedented. It gets worse, Elara continued. We captured one alive. Under compulsion, he revealed they'd been hired by someone at Hogwarts. Harry went cold. Quirrell. Elara looked surprised. How did you know? Suspected for months, Harry explained quickly. His magical signature fluctuates, shows signs of possession or parasitic magic. If he's working for Voldemort or possessed by him. That matches what the hunter said before he died, their employer serves a greater master, seeking immortality. Elara leaned closer to the mirror. Harry, the council has voted. We're coming to Hogwarts. What? Harry nearly dropped the mirror. The entire coven. Not everyone. Lyra, Marcus, myself, and the remaining council members, 13 vampires total. We're invoking the ancient right of sanctuary. Hogwarts' founding charter includes protection for magical beings fleeing persecution. Dumbledore will never agree, he doesn't have to, Elara cut him off. The charter predates headmaster authority. If blood sanctuary is properly claimed, Hogwarts itself will recognize it. The castle's magic is older than wizard prejudice. Harry processed this shocking development. 13 vampires arriving at a school full of wizard children would cause chaos, regardless of ancient charters. When? He asked. 3 days. We travel by shadow paths to avoid detection. Elara glanced behind her nervously. I need to go. Patrols are rotating. Be ready, blood brother. The mirror went dark, leaving Harry sitting alone in the dungeon storeroom, mind whirling with implications. His two worlds were about to collide spectacularly, and he needed to prepare. Harry spent the next day gathering intelligence and resources. He needed allies within Hogwarts who could help manage the inevitable conflict when vampires arrived. His first stop was Hermione. 13 vampires coming here, she whispered when he explained the situation in an empty classroom. Harry, that's unprecedented. Desperate times, Harry replied grimly. Their home is compromised, their defenses failing. They need sanctuary while they recover and develop countermeasures. Hermione bit her lip. The teachers will panic. Students will be terrified. Not if we manage perceptions properly, Harry argued. We need to frame this correctly before rumors spread. That's where you come in. Me? You're respected intellectually by both students and teachers. If you approach this academically, highlighting the historical precedent, the rarity of such an opportunity for magical cooperation, it might help smooth the transition. Hermione's eyes lit with understanding. Educational and cultural exchange rather than dangerous dark creatures seeking refuge. Exactly. She considered for a moment, then nodded decisively. I'll need to research the founding charter and historical cases of sanctuary. I can have materials prepared to distribute once they arrive. Harry smiled gratefully. Thank you. His next ally was more surprising, Professor Snape. After potions class, Harry lingered until the other students had left. Something on your mind, Potter? Snape asked without looking up from the essays he was marking. Sir, I need to inform you of a situation that will affect Slytherin House. That got Snape's attention. He set down his quill and fixed Harry with his penetrating gaze. Proceed. Harry outlined the situation concisely, the attacks on his vampire family, their planned arrival, the sanctuary claim. Throughout, Snape's expression remained unreadable. Your guardians are actual vampires, Snape finally stated. I suspected something unusual, but this exceeds expectations. Yes, sir. And these vampires intend to appear at Hogwarts in 2 days' time, invoking ancient magic to demand sanctuary, bypassing the headmaster's authority entirely. That's correct. Snape pinched the bridge of his nose. You realize, Potter, that the last recorded vampire presence at Hogwarts resulted in 3 student deaths. That was 1756, Harry countered, and the historical record clearly shows the vampires were framed by a faculty member attempting to cover his own experimental failures. Snape's eyebrow rose slightly. You've done your research. My family taught me vampire wizard history isn't what wizard textbooks claim. Indeed. Snape studied him. Why come to me with this? Because you're pragmatic, Harry answered honestly. You'll evaluate the threat realistically rather than reacting with prejudice. And as head of Slytherin, you can help prepare our house to lead by example rather than panic. A ghost of a smile flickered across Snape's face. Appealing to house pride and my rationality simultaneously. Very Slytherin, Potter. I learned from the best, Harry replied, leaving it deliberately unclear whether he meant Slytherin House or his vampire mentors. I will consider how best to approach this unprecedented situation, Snape said finally. Though I suspect the headmaster already knows more than he reveals. Harry nodded. Probably. He has a way of knowing things. A talent that has proven both useful and infuriating over the years, Snape agreed dryly. Is there anything else I should know before 13 ancient predators descend upon a school full of children? Just that they've taken a vow not to feed on humans, Harry assured him. They'll bring their own blood supplies. How very considerate, Snape drawled, but Harry detected a hint of genuine relief beneath the sarcasm. With Hermione working on the academic approach and Snape informed, Harry had one more ally to secure, someone with connections to the magical creature community who might view vampires with less prejudice than most wizards. He found Hagrid in his hut that evening, feeding his boarhound fawn. Harry, the half-giant boomed cheerfully. Just in time fair tea. Hagrid had shown nothing but kindness to Harry since their first meeting, despite Harry's Slytherin sorting. His affection for misunderstood creatures was well known throughout Hogwarts. Over rock cakes that lived up to their name, Harry carefully introduced the topic of vampires, gauging Hagrid's reaction. Fascinating creatures, Hagrid said enthusiastically. Misunderstood, oh, course. Ministry classifies them as dark creatures, but that's rubbish. They're just different, with their own magic and culture. Harry smiled. You sound like you've met vampires before. Once or twice in my travels, Hagrid admitted. Proud beings, bit formal, but fair if ye treat them with respect. He looked at Harry curiously. Why the interest? Harry took a deep breath and told Hagrid everything, his upbringing, his vampire family, their imminent arrival. By the end, Hagrid's mouth hung open in shock. Blimey, Harry, he whispered. You were raised by vampire nobility? And they're comin' here? Yes. And I need someone who understands magical beings to help welcome them properly. Someone who won't judge based on ministry classifications. Hagrid's chest swelled. Count on me, Harry. I'll make sure they're treated right. Got some special black pudding recipes that vampires find tolerable too, not as good as the real thing for them, but adds variety to their diet. Harry grinned. Thanks, Hagrid. I knew you'd understand. As Harry left the hut, a weight lifted from his shoulders. With Hermione, Snape, and Hagrid supporting from different angles, the vampire arrival might not be the disaster he'd initially feared. The vampires arrived during the darkest hour of night, 2 days later. Harry waited in the entrance hall, having used his invisibility cloak to slip past prefect patrols. Hermione joined him shortly after, followed by Hagrid, who'd been officially recruited by Harry to assist with special guests arriving after hours. Are you sure about the timing? Hermione whispered, checking her watch. Harry nodded. They'll travel by shadow paths, arriving at exactly 3:13 a.m., the darkest moment of the night, when shadow magic is strongest. As if on cue, the temperature in the entrance hall dropped suddenly. Shadows in the corners deepened, then began to move unnaturally, flowing toward the center of the hall like liquid darkness. Hermione gasped, clutching Harry's arm as the shadows coalesced into a swirling vortex. From the darkness stepped Lyra Nightshade, her ageless face proud and severe. She wore formal vampire regalia, flowing black robes with silver embroidery depicting the nightshade flower. Behind her emerged Marcus, his missing arm already partially regenerated but still wrapped in healing bandages, followed by Elara and the remaining council members. Harry stepped forward, bowing formally as vampire etiquette demanded when greeting the coven leader in public. Lady Nightshade, welcome to Hogwarts. Sanctuary is yours by ancient right. Lyra's stern expression softened momentarily at the sight of her adopted son. Harry Potter Nightshade, we claim the blood sanctuary offered by the founders of this hallowed place. May shadow and stone protect what is ours. As she spoke these ritual words, something remarkable happened. The castle itself seemed to respond, a pulse of magic rippled through the stones, and the torches along the walls briefly burned blue. Bloody brilliant, Hagrid whispered in awe. Lyra's gaze shifted to Hermione and Hagrid. You've arranged a welcoming committee. How thoughtful. May I present Hermione Granger, brightest witch of our year, Harry said formally. And Rubeus Hagrid, keeper of keys and grounds at Hogwarts. They're friends and allies. Hermione stepped forward, impressively composed despite facing 13 ancient vampires. She performed a respectful bow that Harry had taught her earlier. Lady Nightshade, it's an honor to meet Harry's family. I've prepared materials on vampire history and rites within Hogwarts to help smooth your transition. Elara looked delighted. A scholastic approach. I like this one, Harry. Hagrid bowed as well, though the movement looked awkward with his massive frame. Welcome to Hogwarts. I've prepared accommodations in the East Wing, private chambers with no windows, as requested. You have our gratitude, Lyra acknowledged with regal grace. Preparing for our arrival cannot have been simple. Harry opened his mouth to respond when a new voice interrupted. Indeed it was not. Albus Dumbledore stood at the top of the marble staircase, resplendent in midnight blue robes spangled with stars. His face was calm, but his eyes lacked their usual twinkle. Headmaster Dumbledore, Lyra greeted him, betraying no surprise at his appearance. We claim sanctuary under the founding charter, Article 7, blood of the persecuted. Dumbledore descended the stairs slowly. A provision and used for nearly 3 centuries, Lady Nightshade. One might question whether vampire hunters constitute true persecution when your kind has certain, dietary requirements. Marcus growled low in his throat, but Lyra silenced him with a gesture. Our dietary requirements are managed through ethical blood sources, Headmaster. We have not fed on unwilling humans for over 5 centuries. The Charter makes no distinction between types of persecution, only that those seeking sanctuary must pose no immediate threat to the school's inhabitants. Which we don't, Elara added firmly. We've brought our own supplies and taken binding vows. Dumbledore reached the bottom step, now standing directly before the vampire delegation. Harry tensed, ready to intervene if necessary, though what he could do against 2 such powerful magical beings was unclear. The castle has acknowledged your claim, Dumbledore said finally. I can feel the ancient magic at work. However, I must insist on additional safeguards while you remain at Hogwarts. Name them, Lyra said. Blood wards around student dormitories, maintained by the faculty. Regular check-ins with myself or Deputy Headmistress McGonagall. And complete transparency regarding the threat that drove you here. Lyra considered for a moment. Acceptable terms, with one addition, Harry will have unrestricted access to his family during our stay. Dumbledore's eyes flicked to Harry. That was never in question, Lady Nightshade. Harry's unique situation has been apparent since his arrival at Hogwarts, though the specifics have remained elusive. Harry met the headmaster's gaze steadily. So Dumbledore had suspected his vampire connections all along. Then we are in agreement, Lyra declared. Sanctuary is claimed and granted. May Shadow and Stone witness our accord. Another pulse of magic ran through the castle, sealing the agreement. Dumbledore turned to Hagrid. Please show our guests to their accommodations. I believe the East Tower has prepared itself appropriately. Hagrid nodded. Right this way, if ye please. As the vampires followed Hagrid, Lyra lingered briefly beside Harry. Her hand touched his cheek in a rare public display of affection. We have much to discuss, my son, she murmured. Come to us at first dark tomorrow. Harry nodded, his throat tight with emotion. I'm glad you're safe. After the vampires departed, Dumbledore regarded Harry and Hermione with a mixture of amusement and resignation. Miss Granger, while your presence during this historic moment is commendable, I believe Gryffindor Tower awaits. Professor McGonagall will no doubt have questions about your absence from bed. Hermione blushed but stood her ground. Sir, I've been researching the legal and historical precedent for vampire sanctuary at Hogwarts. I believe I can help facilitate understanding among the students. An admirable initiative, Dumbledore acknowledged. Please prepare your materials for review by Professor McGonagall. Now, if you would. Hermione recognized the dismissal. She squeezed Harry's arm supportively before hurrying toward Gryffindor Tower. When she was gone, Dumbledore turned his full attention to Harry. Vampires, Harry. Of all the possible guardians who might have taken you that night, Lady Lyra Nightshade was perhaps the last I would have anticipated. She saved me, Harry said simply. Raised me as her own when she could have just used me for my magic or blood. Dumbledore sighed heavily. I never doubted her capacity for unexpected compassion. Lyra Nightshade and I have history spanning longer than your lifetime. She is formidable, but not evil. Harry's eyes widened. You know her personally? Our paths have crossed during various magical conflicts over the decades, Dumbledore explained. We have been allies and adversaries at different times. Her methods can be ruthless, but her integrity is rarely in question. She taught me everything, Harry said. About magic, about honor, about family. Yes, I see her influence clearly in you, Dumbledore mused. It explains much about your unusual abilities and perspectives. He paused thoughtfully. Tell me, Harry, did she ever speak to you about the prophecy? Harry tensed. What prophecy? Ah. Dumbledore's expression turned grave. Perhaps that conversation should wait for another time. For now, I suggest you return to your dormitory. Tomorrow will bring many questions from your classmates when they discover vampires in residence. Harry recognized the deflection but didn't press. He had finally gotten his vampire family safely to Hogwarts, mysteries about prophecies could wait. News of the vampire's arrival spread through Hogwarts by breakfast. Students whispered frantically, rumors growing more outlandish with each retelling. By lunch, half the school believed the vampires had been invited to replace Professor Quirrell, while the other half was convinced they were planning to harvest student blood. Dumbledore addressed the speculation at dinner, standing to make an announcement as the hall buzzed with nervous energy. Your attention, please, he called, bringing instant silence. As many of you have heard, Hogwarts has granted sanctuary to a delegation of vampires under the ancient provisions of our charter. They pose no threat to any student or staff member, having taken binding magical oaths and brought their own sustenance. Murmurs broke out across the hall. Furthermore, Dumbledore continued, this presents an extraordinary educational opportunity. Lady Nightshade has graciously offered to provide a series of lectures on vampire culture and magic for 6th and 7th years, while other members of her council will offer insights into magical history from perspectives rarely documented in our texts. The whispers turned from fearful to intrigued, especially at the Ravenclaw table. I expect every student to demonstrate the courtesy and open-mindedness that Hogwarts prides itself upon, Dumbledore finished firmly. Any harassment or provocation toward our guests will be dealt with severely. As dinner progressed, Harry noticed students glancing his way more than usual. His connection to the vampires wasn't public knowledge yet, but rumors were certainly spreading. Draco, who had returned from holiday 2 days earlier, leaned across the table. Is it true they requested you specifically as liaison? He asked, eyes gleaming with interest. Harry shrugged noncommittally. I'm helping Hagrid with their accommodations. My father says Nightshade vampires are among the oldest covens in Europe, Draco continued. Their alliance would be valuable to any wizard family. They're not here for alliances, Harry replied. They're here for sanctuary. Everything is politics, Potter, Draco said with the worldly air he sometimes adopted. Even sanctuary. After dinner, Harry made his way to the East Tower. The entrance was guarded by 2 stone gargoyles that hadn't been animated the day before. Harry Potter Nightshade, he stated formally. Here to see Lady Nightshade. The gargoyles examined him briefly, then stepped aside, revealing a spiral staircase that Harry was certain hadn't existed previously. Hogwarts itself had reconfigured to accommodate the vampire delegation. The tower's interior had transformed remarkably. Gone were the typical classroom furnishings, replaced by elegant Gothic decor reminiscent of Nightshade Manor. Torches burned with blue-tinged fire that provided light without harshness. The air carried familiar scents, incense blends used in vampire rituals and the subtle metallic note of preserved blood. Harry found Lyra in what had become a central council chamber. She sat in a high-backed chair, discussing something with Marcus and two other council members. When Harry entered, she dismissed them with a gesture. "My son," she greeted him, rising gracefully. Without hesitation, Harry stepped into her embrace, a rare display of vulnerability he allowed only with his vampire mother. She held him tightly, her familiar strength reassuring after months of separation. "I've missed you," he admitted quietly. "And we you," she replied, stepping back to examine him critically. "You've grown. And your magic has developed interestingly, wizard techniques blending with our blood training." "Hogwarts has been educational," Harry acknowledged with a small smile. "I expect a full report," Lyra said, guiding him to sit beside her. "But first, we have urgent matters to discuss. The attacks on our havens were not random persecution." Harry nodded. "Quirrell. Or rather, whoever's controlling him." "We believe it's Voldemort," Lyra confirmed. "Our captured hunter revealed fragments under interrogation. His employers spoke of serving a master who would return to power through an artifact hidden at Hogwarts. The Philosopher's Stone," Harry supplied. "We figured that out months ago. It's hidden on the 3rd floor, guarded by a series of protections including a 3-headed dog." Lyra looked impressed. "You've been busy." "I've had help," Harry admitted. "Hermione Granger, the witch you met last night, and Ron Weasley, a Gryffindor student. They've become friends. Human friendships." Lyra's expression was unreadable. "You've integrated well into wizard society, then." "Not entirely," Harry said carefully. "I maintain vampire practices. My blood training continues nightly. But yes, I've formed connections here." Lyra studied him. "That was always the risk of sending you to Hogwarts, that you might find yourself torn between worlds." "Not torn," Harry corrected. "Bridging them. There's value in both." A hint of pride flickered across Lyra's face. "Perhaps. Now tell me everything about Quirrell and this stone. If Voldemort seeks physical restoration, we must act quickly." Harry detailed his observations of Quirrell's fluctuating magical signature, strange behavior, and connections to the 3rd-floor corridor. Lyra listened intently, occasionally asking precise questions that helped Harry organize his scattered observations into a coherent threat assessment. "Your instincts were correct," she concluded when he finished. "Classic parasitic possession, the host body deteriorating under the strain of containing another consciousness. Voldemort must be desperate to risk such an unstable arrangement." "Why target vampire havens, though?" Harry asked. "Seems like an unnecessary complication while pursuing the stone." "Twofold purpose," Marcus answered, entering the chamber with Alara. "Eliminate potential allies who might protect you, and create enough chaos to distract attention from his true goal. Plus vampires know things about immortality that wizards don't," Alara added, dropping into a chair beside Harry. "He might have been hunting for alternative methods in case the stone plan failed." Harry considered this. "We need to stop him before he gets the stone. But we need evidence to convince Dumbledore. He suspects Snape, not Quirrell." "Snape?" Lyra looked amused. "The Dar Potions Master. An unlikely suspect. He has history with dark magic," Harry explained. "And he's been watching Quirrell closely. Most interpret that as guilt, but I think he's suspicious too." "Then we ally with him," Lyra decided. "Vampire senses can confirm your theory about Quirrell's possession. Once we have proof, we approach Dumbledore together." The chamber door opened again, and a young vampire Harry didn't recognize entered with a bow. "Lady Nightshade, the headmaster requests your presence in his office." He wishes to discuss the prophecy with you and young Master Potter Nightshade. Lyra's expression hardened. So it begins. Tell him we will arrive shortly. After the messenger departed, Harry looked at his vampire mother questioningly. What prophecy? Dumbledore mentioned it last night too. Lyra sighed, a rare show of weariness. A prediction made before your birth, concerning you and Voldemort. I've known of it since I took you from Godric's Hollow, but chose not to burden you with it until necessary. And now it's necessary? Harry asked, a knot forming in his stomach. Now Dumbledore wishes to use it to influence you, Lyra corrected. Better you hear it from family first. She rose, her regal bearing returning. The prophecy states that you have the power to vanquish the Dark Lord, power he knows not, and that neither can live while the other survives. It's why he targeted your parents, why he tried to kill you as an infant. Harry absorbed this, the implications cascading through his mind. So I'm destined to kill him? Or he kills me? Prophecies are interpretive, Lyra said firmly. They suggest possibilities, not certainties. Your upbringing was not prophesied. No seer foresaw the boy who lived being raised by vampires, trained in blood magic, or walking between worlds as you do. We've already changed the story, Elara added supportively. Harry nodded, processing this revelation. And Dumbledore? What's his interpretation? That's what we're going to discover, Lyra said grimly. Remember your training, Harry. In negotiations, knowledge is power. We now enter with full awareness of his primary leverage. Dumbledore's office reflected its occupant, eclectic, mysterious, and surprisingly welcoming. Silver instruments whirred on spindle-legged tables, portraits of former headmasters pretended to sleep while obviously listening, and Fawkes the Phoenix watched from his perch with intelligent eyes. Lady Nightshade, Harry, Dumbledore greeted them, rising from behind his desk. Thank you for coming. Please, sit. 2 comfortable chairs appeared before his desk. Lyra took hers with practiced grace, while Harry followed suit, maintaining the formal posture Marcus had drilled into him for important meetings. I believe it's time we discuss certain matters that concern you both, Dumbledore began, his blue eyes moving between them. Specifically, the prophecy that connects Harry to Lord Voldemort. A subject I've recently explained to my son, Lyra replied smoothly. Though I'm curious about your interpretation of it, Albus. Dumbledore's eyebrows rose slightly at the revelation that Harry already knew. Then you understand the gravity of Harry's position in the coming conflict. I understand your perspective on it, Lyra countered. A perspective shaped by wizard magic and wizard prophecy interpretation. And yours differs? Dumbledore asked mildly. Vampires view prophecy as malleable, one potential future among many. By removing Harry from the path you intended, we've already altered the prophecy's trajectory. Dumbledore leaned back, steepling his fingers. Perhaps. Or perhaps you've simply changed the route while the destination remains fixed. Harry looked between them, sensing decades of complex history in their carefully measured exchanges. What exactly did you intend for me? He asked Dumbledore directly. The headmaster considered him thoughtfully. Protection through blood magic, ironically similar to what Lady Nightshade provided, though through different means. I placed powerful protection spells on your mother's sister's home, where her blood connection to Lily Potter would have maintained the sacrifice shield your mother created. Petunia Dursley, Lyra supplied. A woman who despised magic and would have raised Harry to do the same. Hardly ideal preparation for a child prophesied to defeat a Dark Lord. Perhaps not ideal, Dumbledore acknowledged, but safe from Voldemort's direct reach until he was ready to learn the truth. Safe but ignorant? Harry asked skeptically. How would that help me defeat the most powerful dark wizard in a century? Something like approval flickered in Dumbledore's eyes. You raise a fair point, Harry. My plan had limitations. Lady Nightshade's intervention, while unexpected, has yielded a young man with exceptional magical training and mental fortitude. Yet you still disapprove, Lyra observed. I have concerns, Dumbledore corrected gently. Vampire magic operates differently from wizard magic, often more effectively against certain threats, but with different costs and consequences. Blood magic leaves traces, changes the practitioner over time. You mean it could make me dark, Harry stated bluntly. Dumbledore shook his head. Not dark, Harry. Different. Magic shaped by blood creates different pathways through one's magical core. The prophecy speaks of power the Dark Lord knows not. I had always assumed this referred to love, the protection your mother gave you. It still might, Lyra interjected. Harry carries Lily Potter's sacrifice in his blood, enhanced rather than diminished by our training. Blood magic amplifies intent and connection, it has strengthened the protection, not replaced it. Dumbledore looked genuinely intrigued. That possibility hadn't occurred to me. Fascinating. Harry shifted impatiently. This academic discussion is interesting, but there's an immediate threat. Voldemort is here, at Hogwarts, possessing Professor Quirrell and trying to steal the Philosopher's Stone. Both adults turned to him with varying degrees of surprise. You're certain of this? Dumbledore asked sharply. Harry outlined his evidence, Quirrell's fluctuating magical signature, the coordinated attacks on vampire havens, the confession from the captured hunter, and Quirrell's suspicious behavior around the third-floor corridor. Vampire senses can confirm the possession, Harry concluded. Let Lady Nightshade observe Quirrell directly. She can detect the parasitic magic if it's there. Dumbledore considered this, then nodded slowly. A reasonable suggestion. Though if your theory is correct, confronting Quirrell directly could force Voldemort to act desperately. The stone isn't safe regardless, Harry pressed. He's been working on bypassing the protections for months. It's only a matter of time. Perhaps, Dumbledore mused, it would be prudent to set a trap rather than confront him directly. Allow him to believe his path to the stone is clearing, then intercept him at the crucial moment. Lyra's eyes narrowed. You would use Harry as bait. Not at all, Dumbledore countered smoothly. Merely suggesting that knowledge of Voldemort's plans gives us strategic advantage. We can prepare appropriately. We will verify Quirrell's condition tonight, Lyra stated firmly. Once confirmed, we can discuss strategy. Dumbledore nodded. Agreed. Though I must insist that Harry's safety remains paramount. On that, Lyra said with a cold smile, we are perfectly aligned. Confirmation came swiftly. That evening at dinner, 3 Vampire Council members positioned themselves strategically around the Great Hall, observing Quirrell with their enhanced senses. Their verdict was unanimous. The defense professor hosted a secondary consciousness, parasitic and malevolent, that periodically took control of his body. Harry, sitting at the Slytherin table, received the news via a subtle hand signal from Alara, who had accompanied Lyra to the staff table as an attaché. He immediately sought out Hermione and Ron with his eyes, giving them the prearranged signal that their suspicions were correct. After dinner, they met in their secure classroom to discuss next steps. We were right, Harry confirmed. Quirrell is possessed by Voldemort. Ron blanched at the name but didn't flinch as he would have months earlier. Bloody hell. What do we do now? Dumbledore wants to set a trap, Harry explained. Let Quirrell think he's close to getting the stone, then catch him in the act. That's dangerous, Hermione protested. What if he actually gets it? He won't, Harry assured her. The final protection requires something Voldemort can't understand, Dumbledore hinted at it during our meeting. Hermione's eyes widened with sudden understanding. Of course. The Mirror of Erist, it shows your deepest desire. Dumbledore must have enchanted it to hold the stone, with some condition for retrieval that Voldemort can't satisfy. Exactly, Harry nodded. But we need to be ready when he makes his move. The Vampire Council believes it will be soon. Quirrell's body is deteriorating under the strain of possession. How can we help? Ron asked seriously. Be alert. Watch Quirrell's movements. And. Harry hesitated, be prepared to act if adults fail. This involves all of us now. They spent the next hour planning contingencies, each contributing their strengths, Ron's strategic thinking, Hermione's encyclopedic knowledge, and Harry's combat training. By the time they finished, they had a solid response plan for various scenarios. As they left, Hermione pulled Harry aside. "Your vampire family, they're not what I expected." "How so?" "They're more human, in a way. Elara especially. She came to the library today, helped me find sources on vampire rights legislation. She's funny." Harry smiled. "Don't tell her that. She prides herself on being terrifying." "Your mother though," Hermione continued more seriously, "she's exactly what I imagined a 2,000-year-old vampire matriarch would be. Powerful and a bit scary, but also, protective. The way she looks at you, it's obvious she loves you." "She does," Harry agreed softly. "In her way." "I'm glad," Hermione said sincerely. "Everyone deserves a family who loves them, regardless of what form that family takes." The trap was set over the next 2 days. Dumbledore publicly announced a trip to the Ministry, ensuring Quirrell would hear about his absence. Meanwhile, vampire sentries were positioned invisibly throughout the castle, monitoring movement near the third-floor corridor. Harry spent these days divided between classes, strategy sessions with Lyra and Dumbledore, and training with Marcus, who insisted on refreshing Harry's combat skills, in case wizard magic fails. The evening of Dumbledore's departure, Harry felt a strange burning sensation in his scar during dinner, more intense than the occasional twinges he'd experienced throughout the year. Across the hall, Quirrell was noticeably absent from the staff table. "It's happening tonight," Harry murmured to Draco beside him. "What is?" the blond boy asked curiously. "Nothing," Harry replied, then excused himself to find Ron and Hermione. They intercepted him in the entrance hall, both looking worried. "Quirrell's on the move," Ron reported. "We saw him heading toward the third floor, looking nervous but determined." "The vampire sentries?" Hermione asked. "In position, but they won't intervene unless absolutely necessary," Harry explained. "Dumbledore believes confrontation is inevitable, and it's better to control when and where it happens." "So what's our role?" Ron demanded. "Officially? Stay safe in our dormitories," Harry replied with a grim smile. "Unofficially? Be ready to support if called upon. Lyra will signal me through our blood connection if intervention is needed." They reluctantly agreed to return to their houses but remained prepared. Harry headed back to the Slytherin dungeon, though he had no intention of staying there. His invisibility cloak and daggers were already prepared in a small pack beneath his bed. Hours passed. The common room emptied as students went to bed. Harry waited, reaching out occasionally with his magical senses, trying to detect any disturbance in the castle's ambient magic. Shortly after midnight, he felt it, a sharp, burning pain in his scar and a simultaneous pulse through his blood connection with Lyra. The signal. Moving silently, Harry retrieved his pack and slipped from the dormitory. In the common room, he was surprised to find Draco still awake, reading by the dying fire. "Bit late for wandering, Potter," Draco drawled, not looking up from his book. "Emergency," Harry said curtly, not slowing. Draco set down his book. "Something to do with our vampire guests? Or perhaps the third-floor corridor everyone's been whispering about?" Harry paused, studying his housemate. Draco was more observant than most gave him credit for. "Stay here," Harry instructed. "If I'm not back by morning, tell Professor Snape that Quirrell made his move for the stone." Draco's eyes widened. "So there is something hidden there." He hesitated, then added, "Be careful. Slytherin can't afford to lose points if you get yourself killed." Harry recognized the concern beneath the flippant comment and nodded before hurrying out. Under his invisibility cloak, Harry made his way to the third floor. Outside the forbidden corridor, He found Alara waiting, her vampire senses allowing her to detect him despite the cloak. Cutting it close, she whispered as he revealed himself. Quirrell disabled the dog with music and passed through all the challenges. Marcus and Lyra followed but are waiting for the right moment. Dumbledore's returning from London, but he won't arrive in time. The mirror? Harry asked. Quirrell's trying to solve its puzzle now. Voldemort's presence is growing stronger, he's taking over more completely to access the stone. Harry made his decision instantly. I'm going in. Lyra said you'd say that, Alara replied with a grim smile. She also said to remind you of your training. Blood and shadow, strike unseen. Harry nodded, drawing confidence from the familiar mantra. He slipped his daggers into easily accessible sheaths and pulled the invisibility cloak back over himself. The challenges had indeed been cleared, the massive dog slumbered peacefully, a harp playing nearby. Harry moved swiftly through the subsequent chambers, past the devil's snare, the flying keys, the giant chessboard, a knocked-out troll, and Snape's logic puzzle with the potions. In the final chamber, he found Quirrell standing before the mirror of Ariste, frustration evident in his rigid posture. I see myself presenting the stone to my master, Quirrell was saying to himself, or rather, to the presence Harry could now sense clearly. But where is it? How do I get it? Use the boy, came a high, cold voice that seemed to emanate from Quirrell himself. He is here. I can sense him. Harry froze. Somehow, Voldemort had detected his presence despite the cloak. Looking around, he saw no sign of Lyra or Marcus, they must be concealed in the shadows, waiting for the optimal moment. Making a split-second decision, Harry removed his cloak and stepped forward. Looking for something, Professor? Quirrell whirled around, his usual stutter completely absent. Potter. I wondered if I'd encounter you here. Drop the act, Harry said coldly. I know who's really calling the shots. A terrible smile spread across Quirrell's face. Clever boy. Much more perceptive than your classmates. My master said you might be more formidable than anticipated. Let me speak to him, the cold voice demanded. Face to face. Master, you are not strong enough. I have strength enough for this. Harry watched in horrified fascination as Quirrell began unwrapping his turban. The cloth fell away, revealing what should have been the back of Quirrell's head but was instead a face, chalk white with glaring red eyes and slits for nostrils, like a snake. Harry Potter, the face whispered. We meet again. Voldemort, Harry acknowledged, maintaining the calm demeanor Marcus had drilled into him when facing superior opponents. Show no fear, reveal no weaknesses. You see what I've become? Voldemort said. Mere shadow and vapor, forced to share another's body. Unicorn blood has sustained me, but it cannot give me a body of my own. But there is something that can, something that lies in your pocket. Harry's hand instinctively touched his empty pocket. What was Voldemort talking about? Don't play innocent, Potter, Voldemort hissed. You came here for the Philosopher's Stone. You passed the challenges just as I did. Now, look in the mirror and tell me what you see. Harry hesitated, then stepped toward the mirror, keeping Quirrell/Voldemort in his peripheral vision. The vampire training to maintain situational awareness even while appearing focused elsewhere served him well. In the mirror, Harry saw himself, just as he was. Then his reflection smiled, reached into its pocket, and pulled out a blood-red stone. The reflection winked, then returned the stone to its pocket, and Harry felt a sudden weight in his own pocket. Somehow, impossibly, he had acquired the Philosopher's Stone. Well? Quirrell demanded impatiently. What do you see? Harry called upon years of vampire political training to maintain a neutral expression. I see myself shaking hands with Dumbledore. I've won the House Cup. Voldemort's face contorted with rage. He lies. Get the stone from him. Quirrell lunged forward. Harry sidestepped with vampire-enhanced speed, drawing his iron dagger in a fluid motion. Before Quirrell could adjust, Harry slashed across his reaching arm, drawing blood and causing him to howl in pain. "Seize him!" Voldemort shrieked. Quirrell moved with unnatural speed himself now, Voldemort's essence empowering his movements. He managed to grab Harry's wrist, but the moment their skin connected, Quirrell recoiled in agony. His hand blistered before their eyes, the flesh burning away. "What magic is this?" he screamed. "Blood protection," came Lyra's voice from the shadows. "Lily Potter's sacrifice lives in his veins, strengthened by our rituals." She materialized from the darkness, Marcus beside her. Voldemort's face twisted with recognition and hatred. "Nightshade," he hissed. "I should have known vampires would interfere." "We protect our own," Marcus growled, moving to Harry's side. Quirrell continued to deteriorate rapidly, his body rejecting Voldemort's presence more violently after the contact with Harry. Black smoke began to leak from his pores as Voldemort's essence fought to escape its failing host. "This isn't over, Potter," Voldemort's voice echoed as the smoke coalesced into a vaguely humanoid shape. "There are other ways to return, other servants to aid me." The smoky apparition lunged toward Harry. Acting on instinct and years of training, Harry drew Lyra's blood pendant from beneath his shirt and broke the vial, releasing her ancient blood into the air between them. "Sanguine Prohibora," he shouted, activating the protective blood magic. The vampire blood formed a crimson barrier that the spirit could not penetrate. Voldemort's essence howled in rage and pain as it was forced back, then fled through the chamber wall, leaving Quirrell's body to collapse, empty and lifeless. Silence fell. Harry stood panting, the stone heavy in his pocket, his vampire family flanking him protectively. "Well done, my son," Lyra said quietly, pride evident in her voice. Harry looked down at Quirrell's body with mixed emotions. "Is he dead?" "His body is," Marcus confirmed grimly. "His soul fled when Voldemort abandoned the vessel." Footsteps echoed in the corridor outside, and Dumbledore burst into the chamber, wand drawn. He took in the scene quickly, Quirrell's body, Harry standing with the vampires, the broken blood pendant. "I see I am too late to be of assistance," he observed, lowering his wand. Harry reached into his pocket and withdrew the stone. "He almost got it." "But did not," Dumbledore said, taking the stone carefully. "Thanks to your intervention, and that of your family." He nodded respectfully to Lyra and Marcus. "Voldemort escaped," Harry pointed out. "In a weakened form, without a body or the means to restore himself," Dumbledore reminded him. "A significant victory, Harry, even if not a final one." Harry nodded, though the encounter left him unsettled. He had faced his parents' murderer and survived, but the prophecy remained unfulfilled. This was merely the first confrontation of many to come. The following days passed in a blur of debriefings, explanations, and diplomatic negotiations. Dumbledore announced to the school that Professor Quirrell had suffered a tragic magical accident while researching defense spells. Few believed this cover story, but without evidence to the contrary, rumors eventually subsided. The vampire delegation remained at Hogwarts, their stay extended by formal agreement between Lyra and Dumbledore. What had begun as emergency sanctuary evolved into a groundbreaking educational and cultural exchange. Lyra's lectures on ancient magic drew standing room-only crowds of older students, while Alara's workshops on comparative magical theory became the most sought-after extracurricular activity in the castle. Even Marcus found a role, assisting Madame Hooch with specialized flying techniques developed by vampire aerial hunters. 2 weeks after the confrontation with Quirrell, Harry found himself in Dumbledore's office again, this time with both Lyra and Alara present. "The stone has been destroyed," Dumbledore informed them. "Nicholas Flamel and I agreed it was for the best. He and his wife have enough elixir to set their affairs in order before embracing the next great adventure." "A wise decision," Lyra acknowledged. "Such power invites corruption." "Indeed." Dumbledore turned to Harry. "Which brings us to your future, Harry. With Voldemort's first attempt at return thwarted but his threat still lingering, we must consider your continued education and protection. Harry glanced at Lyra, uncertain where this was leading. Lady Nightshade and I have been discussing possibilities, Dumbledore continued. While our approaches differ in many respects, we share the ultimate goal of preparing you to face what lies ahead. We've reached a compromise, Lyra explained. You will continue your education at Hogwarts, learning wizard magic and building connections in this world. However, during holidays, you will return to Nightshade Manor for continued vampire training. Additionally, Elara added enthusiastically, I'll be remaining at Hogwarts as a cultural attaché, officially to continue the exchange program, but actually to maintain vampire presence for your protection and continued blood magic education. Harry looked between them in surprise. You're staying? Elara grinned. Someone has to keep you from becoming too wizard-like. Besides, I've grown fond of this drafty old castle. The arrangement offers advantages to all parties, Dumbledore observed. Harry receives balanced education in both traditions, the Vampire Coven maintains its connection to him, and Hogwarts benefits from unprecedented magical exchange. It also presents a united front against Voldemort's future attempts, Lyra added more practically. He will not expect wizard-vampire cooperation. Harry considered the proposal, emotions conflicted. Part of him had feared being forced to choose between his worlds, Hogwarts or Nightshade Manor, wizards or vampires. Instead, they were offering integration. What about the prophecy? He asked finally. It remains, Dumbledore acknowledged. But prophecies are fulfilled in unexpected ways. Your unique position between worlds may be precisely what creates the power the Dark Lord knows not. Lyra nodded in rare agreement. Voldemort understands neither vampire blood magic nor the protection your mother created through sacrifice. The combination makes you uniquely equipped to face him. Harry thought about everything he'd experienced this year, discovering Hogwarts, making friends like Hermione and Ron, learning wizard magic while maintaining his vampire training. He thought about facing Voldemort, how his dual nature had provided advantages neither world alone could offer. I accept, he said firmly. Dumbledore's eyes twinkled. Excellent. Though I suspect the integration will present challenges for all involved. Cultural differences can be enlightening. Elara laughed. Just wait until the students see our midsummer blood ritual. Educational indeed. Lyra shot her a quelling look, but Harry could detect the amusement beneath her stern expression. His vampire mother was adapting to this new reality better than he'd expected. The end-of-year feast found Harry sitting at the Slytherin table, surrounded by housemates who had gradually accepted his unusual connections. The Great Hall was decorated in silver and green to celebrate Slytherin winning the House Cup, a victory secured partly through points Harry had earned throughout the year. At the staff table, Elara sat beside Professor Sinistra, discussing astronomical theories with animated gestures. Lyra and the remaining Vampire Council members had returned to Nightshade Manor 2 days earlier to oversee reconstruction efforts, but not before Lyra had met privately with each of Harry's close friends, evaluating them with her ancient perspective. She's terrifying, Ron had reported afterward. Asked me what I'd sacrifice for a friend, then stared into my soul for about 5 minutes. Hermione had emerged from her interview looking thoughtful rather than frightened. She's fascinating, she told Harry. Offered me access to the vampire archives if I wanted to research ancient magical theory this summer. I think she was testing my priorities. Now, as Dumbledore awarded last-minute points that somehow resulted in a tie between Slytherin and Gryffindor, prompting decoration changes to silver, green, scarlet, and gold, Harry felt a strange sense of balance settling over him. He was Harry Potter, the boy who lived, wizard student at Hogwarts. He was also Harry Potter Nightshade, vampire-raised, blood magic practitioner, child of 2 worlds. The prophecy loomed in his future, and Voldemort would return, but Harry wasn't facing these challenges alone. He had family, both vampire and human, standing with him. As food appeared on the golden plates, Hermione caught his eye from the Gryffindor table and smiled. Ron gave him a thumbs up. At his own table, Draco nodded respectfully. Harry touched the new blood pendant Lyra had given him before departing, a replacement for the one sacrificed against Voldemort, this one containing drops from both her and his birth mother, recovered from blood-soaked floorboards at Godric's Hollow and preserved for years. Blood of two worlds, she had said while presenting it. Your true inheritance. Harry smiled. Whatever challenges came next, he was ready to face them, not as a wizard, not as a vampire protégé, but as both. Blood of two worlds, he thought, raising his goblet in a silent toast to whatever the future held. Let Voldemort try to understand that power. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.